thanks to our witnesses. We know that your time is valuable and your decision to be here today to share your perspectives, your experiences, and concerns is greatly appreciated. As we examine the current landscape of the specialty crop industry, your firsthand insights are essential to make sure our work is informed by those who live and breathe these challenges every day. Specialty crop plays a crucial and often underappreciated role in the success of U.S. agriculture. Fruits, vegetables, and tree nuts provide nutritious, high-quality food that supports the health of our population at home and abroad. Beyond the plate, nursery crops and floriculture industries contribute to our quality of life, beautifying our communities, and supporting local economies. From the flower beds to our neighborhoods, to produce aisles in our grocery stores, specialty crops touch our lives in countless ways. However, the very diversity that defines this industry can also present unique challenges in policy development. From ensuring adequate risk management tools to supporting effective research, the specialty crop industry requires thoughtful solutions to nuanced challenges. Producers navigate a complex web of pest and disease threats, rising costs, regulatory constraints, and global competition, all while trying to meet evolving customer expectations. Over the years, this committee has worked to create those thoughtful solutions through the creation of specific programs that support the sector and by working across titles to improve program delivery for specialty crop producers. We recognize that the challenges of a citrus producer in California look different than those of a wheat farmer in Kansas, and we believe that our agriculture policy should reflect those differences. As we hear more on what it means to support the industry in a meaningful and effective way today, it is timely to highlight the substantial investments made via budget reconciliation to support our specialty crop producers, and I wanted to share a few examples. But I'm going to back that up really was the investments that were included were ones that were, I really want to say thank you to all the members of the committee that were here last Congress, because that was the blueprint that we used as we worked on the piece of legislation that passed out of this committee with some bipartisan votes. That was the hard work that became the template for what we were able to move in budget reconciliation as the vehicle to get it into law. But it was really the bipartisan work of this committee in the area of specialty crops, and so some thank yous. But some of those accomplishments include an historic investment of an additional $95 million per year in the Specialty Crop Research Initiative, a competitive grant program that provides resources for research and extension projects that ensures the specialty crop industry is not being sidelined. An additional $15 million increase for the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program, enabling state departments of agriculture to work with their producers to enhance their competitiveness. Another $15 million in increased funding to the Plant Pest and Disease Management and Disaster Prevention Program, which is essential to safeguarding American agriculture from invasive pests and diseases that can be particularly devastating to specialty crop producers. And funding was doubled for market development programs to help support export growth for agricultural commodities and to ultimately return to an agriculture trade surplus, which we know is particularly important for the horticulture industry. These investments represent a substantial step in rising to the occasion of assisting our specialty crop producers. But investment alone is not enough. We also need to ensure these programs are accessible, effective, and responsive to real-world conditions. Today's hearing is an opportunity to take stock of where we are, hear directly from stakeholders, and identify where we can come together to find workable solutions that support this essential sector. Thank you again to our witnesses for being here, and thank you to my colleagues for your attention and engagement. I look forward to a productive discussion and to work together to ensure a bright future for America's specialty crop producers. With that, I'd now like to welcome the distinguished ranking member, the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Gregg, for any opening remarks she would like to give.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a special thank you and welcome to our witnesses here today. We really appreciate this bipartisan hearing. I also want to recognize the subcommittee ranking member, Salinas, who has been a stalwart champion for our specialty crop farmers. Oregon, as we all know, is home to many specialty crops, including wine grapes and grass seed. She comes to work every day to fight on their behalf. Thank you for your leadership, Andrea. While row crops are critical to our nation's energy and food security, specialty crops are just as important. Whether it's fruits, nuts, or vegetables, the specialty crops are staples of the American diet. Like many of our row crop growers, specialty crop farmers are in a tough spot today. Labor costs are high, production costs are being driven up by tariffs or inputs that simply cannot be sourced within the United States. The trade wars are causing market turmoil and impacting the cost of machinery and equipment. All of this makes it harder for specialty crop farmers to keep farming and harder for the average American to enjoy reasonably priced produce. The Republicans' budget bill, which they are now trying to rebrand because of its unpopularity, was signed into law in July and made some investments in the farm safety net. However, for many of the requests and needs of the specialty crop industry were left behind, like improvements to crop insurance. I visited a berry farm in California earlier this year, where I spoke with farmers about the challenging economic headwinds they're facing. Specialty crop farmers often produce delicate crops that require fundamentally different farming techniques and equipment than the corn and soybean farmers that call my Southwest Minnesota district home. The farmers I spoke with at the berry farm increasingly see the need for automation and mechanized labor to perform the specialized work necessary to tend to and harvest their crops. Their need to innovate new tools is underscored by this administration's current assault on the farm labor community and the chaos it has caused across farm country. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses today, who are sure to talk more about that. I want to thank you for being here and for sharing your expertise and experiences with us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
The chair would request that other members submit their opening statements for the record so the witnesses may begin their testimony and ensure there is ample time for questions. Our first witness today is Mr. Michael Frantz, the president of Frantz Wholesale Nursery. Our next witness is Dr. Ramesh Sagoli, a professor of horticulture at Oregon State University. And our third witness today is Dr. Tim Boring, the director of the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. Dr. Boring is testifying on behalf of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. And our final witness is Mrs. Dana Brennan, Vice President for Corporate Affairs at Grimway Farms. Thank you all for joining us today, and we're now going to proceed to your testimony. You each have 5 minutes. The timer is in front of you. We'll count down to 0, at which point your time has expired. Mr. Frantz, please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson, Ranking Member Craig, and members of the committee. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Michael Frantz, and I'm the co-owner of Frantz Wholesale Nursery, a family farm founded by my parents nearly 50 years ago. We grow trees and shrubs, perennials and grasses, and sell them to landscape contractors and various retail outlets across the western United States. I have served for over 15 years as a director to the Turlock Irrigation District, a public utility that serves water and power to my community. I've also served for many years as the chair of the Advocacy Committee for American Hort, the premier federal trade association for the horticultural industry. I have traveled to Washington many times over the last 25 years, consistently advocating for bipartisan solutions that would provide a stable and legal workforce for agriculture and reasonable water policies for the West. I realize these topics are outside the jurisdiction of this committee, but both remain top priorities for the specialty crop industry and to me personally. I have submitted a longer, more detailed written testimony to the committee. Foundational to my comments today, the specialty crop industry does not seek commodity price supports. Consumers value our quality crops and pay a fair price, generally sufficient to pay our bills. But there are key areas where government support is vital, which I will try to outline today. We struggle to find effective insurance to mitigate the enormous risk we growers take. In our nursery, we grow over 700 varieties of plants and have up to 10,000 individual crops growing at any given time. Some crops only reside on our farm for a few weeks, while others will grow as long as 8 years from sowing the acorn until we ship the half-grown oak tree to our customer. All our crops are highly perishable and vulnerable to weather and economic variability. Crop insurance for catastrophic and nature-related events are in place for Title I crops, but these programs rarely work well for us because of our extreme crop diversity. Affordable crop insurance programs that can provide disaster relief for unique specialty crop farmers like myself are needed. While we do our best to prevent the need for quarantines, much of the quarantine process is out of our hands. We grow potted citrus trees, a crop highly regulated by USDA to protect commercial citrus farmers. The nursery industry has invested millions of dollars in protective structures to ensure the plants we ship are free of disease. But even small changes in the regulation of movement of citrus can block multi-year crops' access to markets, potentially resulting in millions of dollars of losses essentially overnight. I'm happy to see pilot insurance programs to cover government-imposed quarantine risk are getting started, but they need refinement to be useful. I respectfully ask that you continue to fund this vital risk mitigation tool. We continue to lose crop protection tools each year, and replacements are slow to fill the void. IR4 research dollars were not funded in your last budget bill. They are critical to advance new pest and disease options for us, and I respectfully ask that you include IR funding in the next Farm Bill. The recent Marketing Assistance for Specialty Crops, MASC funding, helped us with our substantial increase in costing. I understand that some of you on this committee were essential in getting the payments out this year. Thank you for your help. As this ad hoc funding source will hopefully play a vital support role in future years, I would ask that this committee consider providing consistent logic for what and who would qualify for additional funding when real needs arise. Another challenge we face is tariffs on essential inputs that largely cannot be sourced domestically. Many of the crop inputs we depend on, such as peat moss and coconut coir, which are components of our soil mix, must be sourced internationally. I want to thank the chairman and his staff for recognizing this challenge and elevating the need for tariff exemptions on peat moss. Securing that exemption has saved our industry millions of dollars and provided some relief. Still, other non-exempt inputs remain subject to tariffs, contributing to macro inflationary pressure that in some cases is pricing our very discretionary products out of consumers' reach. Thank you for your time and consideration today. In closing, I circle back to my three main issues: the vital need for a stable and legal workforce, a strong safety net to protect us when disasters and quarantine strike, increasing inflationary costs that are pricing our quality American-grown specialty crops out of consumers' budgets. If any of you find yourself in California, I would invite you for a tour. We would love to have you. Look forward to your questions.
Mr. France, thank you so much. Dr. Segali, please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Thompson, Ranking Member Craig, Representative Salinas, and the members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on the role of Specialty Crop Research Initiative. My name is Ramesh Sagili. I'm a professor in the Department of Horticulture at Oregon State University. Specialty crops are critical and an integral part of United States agriculture. They are produced in all 50 states in about 15 million acres with a market value of $115 billion. Oregon ranks among the top states nationally in the production value of specialty crops, including fruits, tree nuts, berries, vegetables, and nursery products. Pollinators play an essential role in the production of many of these specialty crops with direct impact on both yield and quality. As a university researcher in apiculture, I have the privilege of working with beekeepers, farmers, and industry partners in addressing critical challenges impacting Oregon's and the United States specialty crop production. I am a current recipient of an SCRI grant and was a part of the other SCRI-funded projects in the past. My work focuses on the critical role of pollinators in specialty crop production and complex threats facing pollinators. The Specialty Crop Research Initiative is unique among the USDA and NIFA competitive programs because of its targeted focus on specialty crops, its broad scope, integration of research and extension, and robust funding levels that allow multidisciplinary and multi-state projects. The program has 5 legislatively mandated focus areas and encourages focus on emerging priorities such as threats to specialty crop pollinators. The SCRI program strongly encourages transdisciplinary research, which is critical in solving complex problems as many problems facing agriculture are multifaceted and need diverse expertise from different disciplines. SCRI also encourages a systems approach that emphasizes understanding a problem by focusing at the entire system rather than looking at individual components. In addition, the SCRI program closely involves stakeholders in identifying the needs and in the review of grant proposals. This unique approach enables SCRI to address the real-world needs of specialty crop producers by prioritizing practical applied research with tangible benefits. My overall experience with SCRI proposal submission has been positive, but I believe that there is further scope for improvement in the process and offer 3 opportunities to improve and streamline the SCRI grant process. First, the SCRI program could improve the timely and reliable release of requests for applications because uncertainty around the release of RFAs makes planning challenging for the applicants, as they need adequate time for preparing quality proposals. Secondly, the SCRI could provide more time between the release of RFA and submission of the proposals. Finally, a key challenge with the SCRI program is the limited success rate in securing grants by the applicants. There are over 300 specialty crops grown in the United States with a wide range of complex challenges demanding attention. In recent years, with an allocation of $80 million per year, the SCRI was able to fund between 20 to 25 awards per year, but this program receives a large number of meritorious proposals each year, and the success rate is only about 15%. For my current award, I had to apply twice before I was successful. With this said, I applaud the committee for recognizing the importance of SCRI program and the impact of investment in this program. The committee's action in HR 1 enacted in July to increase annual investment of mandatory funds for the SCRI from $80 million per year to $175 million starting in 2026 creates a meaningful opportunity for USDA to increase number of projects awarded each year. In conclusion, SCRI is an exemplary program that has served the specialty crop industry needs especially well since its inception and is the most significant research funding opportunity for addressing challenges at the intersection of pollinator health and specialty crop production. Investment in SCRI not only advances innovation, but also helps secure the future of American agriculture. Your continued support for the SCRI is greatly appreciated and essential to ensuring that program's long-term success and its continued benefits to specialty crop farmers across the United States. Thank you very much.
Dr. Segali, thank you so much for your testimony. Dr. Boring, please begin when you're ready.
Good morning, Chairman Thompson, Ranking Member Craig, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to participate today. The perspective I bring to this hearing is as the Director of the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. I'm also a 6th-generation family farmer and a proud member of the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture, or NASDA. Many of you know my colleagues from around the country who are currently in Arkansas for NASDA's annual meeting this week. I appreciate all the work NASDA is doing at a federal level and look forward to participating in the rest of the annual meeting there when I return to Arkansas following this hearing. My focus this morning will be on Michigan's specialty crops, their importances, and the challenges and opportunities that growers and consumers face in this vital industry. Members of this committee have the ability to foster the success of specialty crops today and for years to come. Earlier this year, I was honored to speak before your colleagues in the Senate, and I first want to acknowledge the progress that has been made since I submitted that testimony. I appreciate that the recent federal budget did extend portions of the Farm Bill through 2031, but we know that we're still barreling towards the September 30th expiration for the remaining provisions not included in H.R. 1. We know food security is national security, and the next Farm Bill will dictate effectively how we're able to feed ourselves by ourselves in the future. Agriculture is a nearly $126 billion industry in Michigan, and I consider our specialty crop farmers the backbone of our success. I've had the pleasure of visiting many of our specialty crop growers in their fields and orchards this season, hearing firsthand the many challenges facing the industry. These interactions inform our strategy at a state level, as well as how I advocate at a federal level when I have opportunities like this to convey just how vital specialty crop support programs are for their existence. Unfortunately, for many specialty crops, times have never been more tenuous. In Michigan, specialty crops once offered a way for farmers to diversify, but these days, instead of growing their operations, many farmers are debating if they can stay in business. Whether it's due to trade uncertainty, rising input costs, climate variability, labor constraints, and threats of pest and disease, many specialty crops in this country are either harder to grow, more difficult to get to markets, or challenging as ever to reach the consumer. In the interest of time this morning, I want to highlight some key areas that are currently supported in the Farm Bill and need continued support. as well as share what we're doing in Michigan that is seeing success and deserves more attention at a federal level. First, public sector research has been critical for specialty crops, specifically the specialty crop block grants supported through the Specialty Crop Research Initiative. These investments have been instrumental in keeping farmers one step ahead of the next disease or pest threat. For instance, in 2024, cherry farmers in our state lost between 30 and 75% of the crop, depending on the locality and variety, because of abnormal weather events early in the season that drove unprecedented insect and disease pressure later. This year, early spring frost events reduced yields by 30 to 90% across our state, depending on the farm location, and our state as a whole only harvested 60% of a normal cherry crop. Losses such as these are becoming far more common. Our researchers in Michigan are utilizing specialty crop block grant funding to address new pest pressures and build climate resiliency in our orchards, but as these recent yield reductions show, the threats are imminent and significant. I appreciate H.R. 1 expanding funding for the program by $100 million and believe the next farm bill should affirm that continued support for continued research investment. Understanding science is critical for the long-term viability of specialty crops in Michigan and across the country. At a time when there are so many unknowns and challenges around our trade partnerships, fostering stronger domestic markets will be critical for the success for our growers. Finally, I want to share two areas we're seeing success in Michigan, our regenerative ag program and our new farm-to-family program. Regenerative agriculture is an active approach to land management driven by improving soil health. Our Regen Ag unit supports Michigan producers by de-risking practice adoption, strengthening network engagement, and increasing market opportunities so farmers and landowners can improve profitability and find new ways to diversify. This also restores healthy soils and safeguards natural resources for future generations. The second program I'd like to highlight for its success is our farm-to-family program, an effort working to strengthen agri-food systems across our state. This year, we administered our first research grants to food hubs and farm stops, creating new opportunities for Michigan farmers and meeting demands for communities who want healthy, locally grown produce on their tables. And just this week, we finalized plans to launch our new Good Food for Michigan program. This will be work that's intentionally engaging different institutions, including community colleges and early childhood centers, addressing barriers and creating opportunities for healthy grown food here in Michigan. It's another example of how Governor Whitmer is prioritizing collaboration that translates to improving quality of life for all Michiganders. I share all this today because the support of our specialty crop growers directly translates into tools to keep farmers farming, keep rural communities vibrant, and keeps fruit and vegetables on the dinner tables across America. Thank you for this opportunity and look forward to questions from the committee.
Dr. Borg, thank you so much for your testimony. Mrs. Brennan, please proceed with your 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson, Ranking Member Craig, and members of the committee. My name is Dana Brennan, and I'm here today on behalf of Grimway Farms, based in Bakersfield, California, with operations throughout the country. I am also honored to serve as the chair of the International Fresh Produce Association's United States Public Policy Committee, the organization I am proudly representing today. Grimway's story began with a roadside produce stand started by the Grimm brothers in the early 1960s. Today, Grimway is one of the biggest carrot producers and also one of the top organic growers in the United States. We grow more than 135 seasonal and year-round products distributed worldwide, including 65 organic commodities under brands such as Cal Organic and Bunny Love. Those crops are grown on over 40,000 acres of conventional ground and 55,000 acres of prime organically certified ground throughout California, Arizona, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Colorado, Georgia, and Florida. Fresh produce is a cornerstone of both American agriculture and public health. Our industry contributes billions annually to the economy and delivers the healthiest foods available, foods that are essential to preventing diet-related diseases. But this vital sector is under real and growing pressure. Regulatory overreach, labor challenges, and outdated policies are making it harder to grow, harvest, and deliver fresh food. Without action, many U.S. producers will not be able to compete. We appreciated the much-needed funding in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, but gaps remain. Specialty crops make up hundreds of billions of dollars in value, yet they receive just 0.5% of Farm Bill funding. The next law must strive to rebalance this. To secure America's supply of fresh, affordable produce and in full alignment with the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance's Farm Bill Priorities update, the update shared on August 5th, we urge Congress to do the following. 1, expand research and development in crop protection, pest management, innovation, and mechanization. 2, reform and modernize the safety net. Unlike major commodity crops, which benefit from well-established and widely utilized insurance programs, many specialty crop growers still lack access to viable, tailored risk management options. Congress must prioritize risk management solutions that address the full spectrum of U.S. agriculture, encompassing both large and small farms, as well as row crops and specialty crops, in a manner that is both efficient and cost-effective. 3, update and streamline existing specialty crop programs, including the National Organics Program. 4, promote produce at home. Domestic produce products are competing with lower-cost imports and processed alternatives that often serve as like substitutes in the eye of the consumer. Questions have been raised about whether the USDA has the statutory authority to establish and administer a domestic promotion program to help address these competitive pressures. Therefore, Congress should reaffirm that the USDA does indeed have the statutory authority to conduct domestic promotion activities. 5, improve nutrition access. Only 1 in 10 Americans meet the recommended fruit and vegetable intake daily. The fresh produce industry is ready to help reverse that trend. We believe Congress should incentivize produce consumption in SNAP and WIC, expand online SNAP access, make the fresh fruit and vegetable program option available to more schools, and ensure USDA procurement reflects a diverse range of fresh produce. Lastly, strengthen trade and market access. Fresh produce is one of North America's most actively traded commodities, yet non-tariff barriers such as excessive residue limits and packaging standards block U.S. exports. This industry, frankly, is central to America's health, economy, and food security. It deserves policy support that matches that value. On behalf of Grimway and IFPA, I want to thank the committee for dedicating so much time today and attention to specialty crops in America. We look forward to working with you to build a stronger, more resilient future for U.S. produce and for the millions of Americans who rely on it every day. Thank you.
Ms. Brennan, thank you so much for your testimony. At this time, members will be recognized for questions in order of seniority, alternating between majority and minority members, and in order of arrival for those who joined us after the hearing convened. You'll be recognized for 5 minutes each in order to allow us to get to as many questions as possible. I'd like to recognize myself for 5 minutes. Specialty crops require tailored research from pest and disease management to post-harvest handling and mechanization technology. To any of our witnesses, how effective have federal research programs like the Specialty Crop Research Initiative or the IR4 project been in addressing these unique industry needs, and where do you see opportunities for additional investment or collaboration?
Well, I can share the Michigan perspective too, of just how important the specialty crop block grant funding has been. Our industry really bands together in the allocation of this funding. We've got a pretty rigorous process for how applications come in, of how we're advancing any number of various challenges to the industry, whether it's emerging pest pressure, the shift of some of the changing weather patterns we see, the ability to work on market access in various areas. So those continued investments in a predictable way, in a way that fosters that continued collaboration for the betterment of our broad industry is going to continue to be really important for us, of making sure we're elevating up the stature of all specialty crops as kind of a rising tide narrative within our state.
Thank you, Dr. Boring. Any other witnesses care to comment on that question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. I can speak to IR4, which is a fabulous public-private partnership that really puts a good use to money to help fund crop protection tools that would otherwise not be put in motion by commercial producers because there's not enough crop demand for it. In my farm, we measure the space where we put our crops in square feet, not in acres. And so there's not much incentive for the chemical manufacturers to invest in crop protection tools for crops that have such a small amount of need. So we're very grateful for the funding, and we put it to good use. Thank you.
Very good. Either two remaining witnesses care to comment on that? No? Okay.
Yeah, as a researcher, I can talk a little bit perspective on that. I'm glad that I see some language in the SCRI RFPs recently that They're going to address some labor issues and promote some of those research programs that might benefit mechanization so that labor costs can be dealt with. So I'm glad I see some language in the SCR right now.
Very good, thank you very much. Well, Mr. France, as a specialty crop producer in California, you're operating in a sector that not only drives significant economic activity, but also faces unique regulatory challenges. Can you share with us today how federal policies and regulations impact your operation, and what should we be considering to support the long-term viability of your operation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. California is a wonderful state, but there's a lot of regulatory challenges, so thank you for asking the question that way. I would give you a three-part answer. The first is we urgently need a bipartisan legal ag labor workforce solution. We need it now, and we need it for the future. It's a critical component not only of agriculture, but of the whole country. So I would ask this committee in your other capacities too, to please focus on getting that done. The second is price stability. I think we're going to talk about tariffs quite a bit today. Our business hasn't been materially affected by tariffs yet, but the uncertainty around them has already increased our costing, which has forced us to increase our prices. So we need price stability. And the third is we need to pass the Farm Bill. You heard already from the four of us the essential provisions that are in it, and having that foundational backstop is critically important for us in California. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to yield back the balance of my time and recognize the gentlelady, ranking member from Minnesota, Ranking Member Craig, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you once again to each of our witnesses who've taken time out of your busy schedules to be with us here today. Director Boring, your testimony shows the high level of success the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development has had in implementing the specialty crop block grants in Minnesota. The Minnesota Department of Agriculture has let me know that while they usually receive USDA's request for applications for the program in January, this year's RFA was delayed until, I believe, May. Was this delay experienced across all departments of agriculture?
Well, I can share thanks for the question. I can share the perspective from Michigan that we experienced similar delays. Normally, we start a lot of the work for allocation of specialty crop block grant funding in December, and this year we obviously had quite a few delays. I would say the timeliness and the predictability of these efforts continues to be really important. We have a pretty rigorous process for how we're going around and allocating funding. We have 300 commodities in Michigan. There's a lot of demand for these products and projects. So those kind of delays and uncertainty about when and if the funding comes through do have consequences on our ability to carry out meaningful research projects.
Can you say just a little bit more about how the timing of those block grant programs should better align with the growing seasons for specialty crops? How do you think about that?
Well, certainly. I mean, we're obviously growing crops here that have a predictable growing season, and so researchers need some time to be planning ahead and implementing research projects in the field. So when we have these delays stretching into May, obviously we're coming into the growing season for a lot of these crops, and researchers have challenges then implementing some of these research projects in the field and the timelines by which we're traditionally accustomed to operating.
Thank you. I know agriculture research is absolutely necessary to protect American ag from pests, diseases, and other threats to crop health and productivity. In addition to protecting our harvest, ag research has ushered in new technology and innovations that have helped improve crop characteristics and even breed industry-changing varieties like the Honeycrisp apple that was developed at the University of Minnesota and that we enjoy so much in my family. I'm pleased to have a researcher here today who is leading a specialty crop researcher initiative project on pollinator health and crop production. So, Dr. Sugali, can you tell us about your experience working with a multi-state and multidisciplinary team on your SCRI project, and how does that collaborative environment help us better address challenges to specialty crop production and advance innovation?
Thank you, Congresswoman Craig. So yeah, I've been fortunate to have an SCRI grant to address some of the pollinator health issues in intersection with the crop production or specialty crops as well. So my experience has been both rewarding and challenging as well. And the way I say challenging is to deal with multiple institutes to collaborate, but it's been very rewarding because you can't do, most of these agricultural problems, especially with specialty crop production, they're multifaceted. So you need a really a credible team that is, for example, in our case, I'll just give my example here. So with, there's a disease that we are dealing with, it's called a European foul brood disease in honeybees, and it's impacting not only honeybee colonies, but because of that decline in colony health, it indirectly impacts the pollination of specialty crops like blueberries, almonds, anything that you can think of. So what we did is we designed or formulated a very strategic transdisciplinary team. Because I'm a honeybee biologist, I can only do one thing at a time. But I need a microbiologist on the team, an ag economist to look for cost economics. I need an extension person to do extension. I need a genomics person to do genomics work, and I need a microbiologist as well. So that's how we created this interdisciplinary team, and that's what I'm really fortunate that this is really going well, and I'm really glad that we got the SCRA grant to tackle. And not only the transdisciplinary team, we are also looking at multi-state. So this is involving California, Mississippi, Washington, and Oregon as well, because they all go specialty crops, and most of them are involving honeybee pollination as well.
Thank
So
you
it's
so
been a
much.
rewarding experience. Yeah.
Thank you. Last question quickly, Mr. France. Can you give me any suggestions you have for this committee on how crop insurance can be improved for specialty crop products?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. I do have a lot of thoughts about ways to improve crop insurance for specialty crops. There are a few programs out there, but in my case, because of the extreme diversity of crops on our farm, none of them work. And so I'd be happy to give you much more detail, or I can go now. But basically, the catastrophic insurance programs that are out there require a minimum of 50% damage to pay for claims. In our case, we have so many crops that are immune from that particular hazard, we never hit the threshold. So we could have a crippling frost that, say, would take out a third of our nursery, all of our citrus, but it wouldn't affect the frost-hardy plants. And so we're not eligible to receive payment.
Mr. France, thank you for that, and my time is up and over, so I will yield back, and I'm sure someone else will ask you more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, John Way. Now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Austin Scott, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as we're sitting here talking about insurance and other things, I'm reminded of 2008 when the FDA blamed a salmonella outbreak on U.S. grown tomatoes when it ended up being peppers coming in from Mexico, and the bankruptcies that ensued in my area from a mistake that the FDA made. And then the courts deemed that FDA had no liability for that mistake, even though it resulted in not just the loss of millions of dollars, but the loss of farms that had been in families for generations. And so just we need to keep that in mind, that FDA not getting their facts straight before they make a decision like that and publicize something can lead to widespread disruptions in our agricultural markets. And I'm also reminded of just how vital the role of our land-grant institutions is. Ms. Brannon, you've got a big operation in South Georgia. I've been there. It's been a couple of years. It's a great operation using a lot of new technology with regard to weed control. Would you mind just giving a brief explanation of what you're doing for weed control there that is just very different from what we have seen on other farms where you're targeting the actual specific individual weed?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Congressman. We employ varying technologies across our operation, whether it's in your district in South Georgia, Northern Florida, that area. We are focused heavily on always looking to the next best thing. The cost in organics and in any specialty crop industry is always the highest cost going to be labor. And so we have been employing a number of technologies to look at how we can target weeds when the crop is at its youngest. I think we are still working through that now. It's a really neat process, and we'd invite you to come down if you haven't already seen it.
Sure.
To take a look. But it's a good example of that, absolutely.
Just for my colleagues, it's actually a piece of machinery that, through an optical image, as I understand it, determines where to actually send a laser, which
Correct.
just destroys the weed by heat, and instead of spraying chemicals on a crop, you're
Yes, sir.
you're doing that. Where's that machinery manufactured?
You know, I don't
You know-
have that off the top of my head,
Okay.
but I'm happy to get you that information later.
Well, there is one, look, I'm very concerned about the tariffs on ag machinery that is being brought into the United States. And that's something that I think we need to revisit. Machinery that's being brought into the United States that we use in crop production should not be tariffed. It's putting Americans to work, it's putting groceries on our table, and I'm very concerned about that. Today in Georgia, specialty crop growers in my state are meeting actually in my hometown of Tifton, Georgia. They're discussing H-2A and the ag labor issues. I want to give each of you the opportunity over the next 2 minutes to speak to what you see as keys to successful policy in the ag labor reform legislation in this Congress and the H-2A program. And again, Ms. Breenan, I'll start with you. If you could keep it to about 30 seconds, and then we'll just move down the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been on record as supporting the Farm Workforce Modernization Act in the last Congress. We appreciate the bipartisan work. I think there are a number of things we could do to reform the program, H-2A specifically, whether it's a cap on AWR and a number of other flexibility issues. I would welcome a further conversation on that. I know all of us rely very heavily on that change.
Dr. Boring?
Well, certainly those ag labor issues are of top concern in Michigan as well. I'd say, again, that the collaboration of trying to work on these multi-component issues is really significant to us in Michigan. Recognizing the value that ag labor continues to provide, I think certainly those multifaceted investments in automation are a piece to this, but it's going to take some real digging down to get at what some of these labor issues are in states like Michigan.
All right. Dr. Segill, the pollinator expert.
Thank you, Congressman. So I can just give you a pollinator expert opinion here. So I work very closely with our stakeholders, both beekeepers and farmers, and I know labor is really critical, and many of our beekeepers depend on H-2A for getting their labor. So I think it's a really important program. And so just as a researcher, I would say emphasize that would be definitely helpful for our stakeholders.
Okay. I'm down to about 20 seconds. Mr. France, I'll get your comments for the record. But one of the things I'm very concerned about is, how the wage rate has been set, especially, for my state and the state of Georgia. It's gone up exponentially over the last several years. I don't know who was filling out the surveys, but I'm yet to find a farmer, and I know a lot of farmers that was actually asked to fill out a survey on the wage rate, and yet they continue to go up on the wages somewhere in the range of 20% a year, making it very difficult for our family farm operations. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize Mr. David Scott from the state of Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In Georgia, my farmers definitely know the importance of accessing new markets. In my district alone, 95% of our farms are family-owned, and nearly half of all producers are new or beginning farmers, and they understand how critical finding new buyers can be in order to stay competitive. But I tell you, this ongoing trade war is directly threatening their access to new and existing markets. And Ms. Brennan, that is the gist of my concern. And I strongly believe that we here in Congress must take steps to ensure that our specialty crop producers remain competitive both domestically and internationally. And in your testimony, you highlighted how programs like market access programs, the existing specialty crop experience exports initiate help in producers competing globally. Please excuse my co here. But here's the question. How is the current market volatility compounding existing barriers to entry that prevent our producers from participating in these programs?
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate the question. I would add that In addition to those headwinds, we already have other headwinds, right? You know, we've got pest pressure, we have weather, we have other volatile activities that affect our farms. So I would say anything that Congress could do to stabilize that would be greatly appreciated. Anything that Congress could do to invest further in specialty crop market access programs would be greatly welcomed by any number of us at this table and the growers that we're representing. So I appreciate that sentiment, and I would agree with you.
Well, we got a number of Congress people here. Let me ask you this question, because we got the answer to this one. Would an increase in funding allow USDA to help more producers access new markets?
I feel like that might be a trick question. Yes, of course, increased funding would be a huge help. I think ensuring that that goes to specialty crops would be something that would be even more of importance in making sure that that specialty crop definition is protected at USDA so that the programs in need are getting that funding.
Well, I agree with you that the federal government can find new ways to partner directly with specialty group producers to increase that new market opportunities. For example, in my own district in Gwinnett County Public Schools, that's located in my district, they successfully partnered with Georgia blueberry producers to incorporate more blueberries into their high school and elementary school menus. Simple things like that. So, Ms. Brennan, how can domestic promotion drive consumer demand, grow business for our producers, and are there unique barriers to domestic markets compared to international markets?
I think, as you're aware, the cost of doing business in the U.S., the regulatory barriers, makes the cost of producing our product more expensive. I think you hit on something that's really important, which is that domestic consumption and driving that consumption, which starts at home, it starts at schools, and so to the extent that we can invest in those nutrition programs that start young, so those young people are getting introduced to the commodities that we grow and are able to have access to that fruit and vegetable, will inevitably lead to a consumer down the road who knows what they're buying, is looking for it at the store, and is supporting our programs.
And let me ask you this. Should our Agriculture Committee consider incentivizing and expanding public-private partnerships like those between specialty crop producers and school districts in the next Farm Bill?
Yes, absolutely, sir. I would agree with that.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Lucas, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for testifying today. Dr. Boring, your testimony touches on this, but why is it important that states have flexibility in setting their priorities under the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program?
Well, I appreciate that question. I think that's a really strong point here of the state's abilities to set those priorities. And really knowing that we've got challenges that really cut across numerous commodities in Michigan. Some of our pest pressures are going to be felt by various orchard crops or vegetable crops. The ability to respond quickly and to shift to these emerging issues, whether that's market access in some ways, but a lot of our emerging pest pressures, we really count on industry partnership to do that, and that flexibility moving forward is going to be really critical to continued success.
Continuing with you, Dr. Boring, before the 2014 Farm Bill, states couldn't collaborate on multi-state projects under the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program. Why is this ability to work together, especially on pest and disease management, so valuable today?
Well, really, that leveraging the university researchers from one institution to the next is really critical. We share a lot of growing condition challenges across the upper Midwest, for instance, right? Many of the issues we're going to see in specialty crop production in Michigan are also going to be shared in New York, and Minnesota, and Wisconsin. The ability to work on those kinds of issues on a regional basis really strengthens the capacity for what the solutions are on the back end.
Mrs. Brennan, your testimony highlights the need to help families eat more fruits and vegetables through programs like SNAP. In Oklahoma, we have a program called Double Up Oklahoma that matches every SNAP dollar spent on locally grown fruits and vegetables. From your perspective, why is it beneficial to invest in local initiatives like this alongside broader efforts that expand market access?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. We are very supportive of those double up bucks type programs. IFPA has been very supportive of that around the U.S. Where it is available. I think local control is always something we should look at because the success of the program is really boots on the ground. I think we certainly aren't in the business of talking or advocating for eligibility, but to the extent that we can bring fresh fruits and vegetables directly to those children, it's all about health, and that's a huge success.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentlelady from North Carolina, Dr. Adams, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Mrs. Brennan, you called on Congress to incentivize produce consumption in both SNAP and WIC. Given the recent $186 million cut to SNAP in the Republicans' One Big Ugly Bill, what impact will these cuts have on produce consumption and consequently specialty crop producers? Or should we expect Americans to purchase fewer fresh fruits and vegetables? And how can Congress attempt to prevent this impending harm to American producers and consumers?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. I think we are certainly not going to take a position on something that dictates eligibility. However, I would say we are supportive and have been supportive of anything that increases consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables, whether it's in schools or any program under the federal government. I'm happy to look at and work with the Trade Association to get you numbers as related to your question of what this means on the ground, and circle back with you directly.
Thank you, thank you. A Trump administration goal is to make America healthy again. But the Republicans' One Big Ugly Bill eliminated the SNAP Ed program. That's an initiative that provides nutrition education and promotes healthy, active lifestyles to individuals and families eligible for SNAP benefits. So what are the potential consequences of eliminating this program for American families, and how might it impact specialty crop producers who rely on increased demands for fruits and vegetables? Yes, ma'am.
So I would say long before there was a movement, the specialty crop producers have been supportive of health by way of fresh fruits and vegetables. I think we are going to continue to support things like the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program because that benefits the recipients and the growers who sell into those programs. So we will continue to support those programs as they stand and are happy to serve as a resource for the committee or the administration for further information.
Thank you. My last question will be for everyone, if they can briefly respond. Let me say, first of all, that specialty crop exports total $24.6 billion in FY 2023, providing essential income to U.S. farmers. The Trump administration's haphazard imposition of tariffs on our nation's biggest trade partners have had a detrimental impact on many industries, including agriculture. And to all of you, what with such a large amount of income tied to the export of specialty crops, what impact do you foresee that the tariffs will be having on farm income for specialty crop growers? If each of you can respond quickly.
I'll certainly say from Michigan, we expect negative ramifications of this in the short term. We're also concerned about the long-term stability of markets, right? Our Michigan specialty crop industry is built on multifaceted demand outlet, both domestic and international, fresh market processing. It takes all of those things working in concert together to have a vibrant industry for our state. The continued access into international markets is really going to be critical for our ongoing success.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Congresswoman, thank you for your question. My nursery does not ship internationally, but my brother and I do farm almonds, which is a powerhouse California crop. And in that market, or that crop, it is primarily an export market. And so in that regard, we support trade agreements that support the free and fair trade and export of almonds.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Congresswoman, I'm a researcher, so I don't have much opinion on that, but I can convey my stakeholders' opinion for sure. So they are concerned about some of these issues, but again, as a researcher, I don't think I have much information to convey at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
I would just
Go
add
ahead.
quickly, I think it's the unknown, right, which is going to affect the markets greatly, so I think that's what we're focused on.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Boring, North Carolina and Michigan are not as uncommon as one might imagine. According to the Census, Agriculture, and the Local Food Marketing Survey, North Carolina and Michigan rank top 10 in number of operations producing specialty crops and number of operations. It means then that our states are producing a lot of nutritious foods that can readily feed our communities. And North Carolina has done a pretty impressive job implementing former USDA investments, such as local food purchase assistance programs, the Resilient Food System Infrastructure Grant Program. So can you tell me just a little bit about Michigan's implementation of these programs?
We followed right along with North Carolina in implementation of a lot of these. Those kinds of programs are demand for the food and the product we grow here in Michigan. So continued support of that is really in the long-term best interest
So
of
I'm
people
out
from
of
Michigan
time, and if you could
and
send
North
that to
Carolina.
us in writing, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Rouser, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to follow up on what my colleague Alston Scott, his last couple questions that he had for the panel. And first, Mr. Chairman, I want to enter into the record research conducted by the North Carolina Chamber, North Carolina Farm Bureau, and other partners regarding the H-2A program's broken adverse effect wage rate methodology. Title of the report is A Broken Baseline, the Flawed Economics Behind AWR Calculations by Dr. Blake Brown. Dr. Blake Brown, I know Alma knows him quite
Without
well.
objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Blake Brown was a longtime ag economist at NC State University, and his research focused on the current AWR methodology, which is totally disconnected from real wage trends or inflation, and how it, pardon me, has hurt the American farmer and the American consumer and led to fewer jobs. And I mean all farm jobs. I'm not talking about own farm jobs, all farm jobs. When comparing an alternative model where the AWR grows in line with the Employee Cost Index, the ICI, the findings are very plain. We would have 518 million pounds and 823 million pounds respectively in additional domestic fruit and vegetable output. We would have an additional 1.73 billion in total economic impact, with 25,744 jobs created over that period of time. 290 million pounds in reduced fruit imports, and 470 million pounds in fewer vegetable imports. So the bottom line of all this is the AWR is so artificially high, it has led to increased imports, it's led to fewer jobs, all farm jobs, it's led to higher prices for consumers, and smaller farmers, they can't make the numbers work, so they hang it up. And how many times in this committee have I heard so many people talk about the plight of the small farmer and how we need to protect the small farmer? That adverse effect wage rate set so artificially high is running people out of business. It's affecting the American consumer, increase in imports, and all the rest of it. So I encourage everybody to take a look at this report, which is why I submitted it for the record. You know, we have to address this so that American growers can deliver affordable, domestic, healthy foods to the American consumer. That's the bottom line. And so I was pleased to see recent action by the Department of Labor to revise the current methodology following the federal injunction in Louisiana. And I encourage Secretary Chavez DeRemer to continue engaging with the agriculture industry to get this right for the future of the entire agriculture economy. And I know that she will. Switching gears, Mr. France, your testimony outlines the struggle your industry has finding effective insurance for the large variety of plants and different growing cycles you have in horticulture. In North Carolina, we personally experienced losses in the mountains at nurseries and Christmas tree farms, which have not previously carried insurance, because quite frankly, the region has never experienced such dramatic weather as with Hurricane Helene. I think the struggles that our growers experience, coupled with dramatic losses from natural disasters we've seen across the country, underscore the need for some type of standing assistance for growers outside of crop insurance. Can you speak to how ad hoc assistance supports horticulture and specialty crop growers who have struggled to find the right insurance tools?
I can, and well, thank you for the question, first of all. I want to acknowledge your comment about the H2A increases. I am not an H2A user, but I sat next to a gentleman last night at dinner, a large grower from Ohio, and he shared with me that his adverse wage has changed by 47% since 2019. So, Congressman Scott, to your point earlier, so it's real. And those wage increases in the horticultural world, where labor is such a significant component, generally in excess of 30% of our direct inputs, translate into real-world inflation for our products. To your question, Congressman, I've sort of introduced my comments as saying that the current status of specialty crop insurance isn't working. There's a NAP program that's for the non-insured folks like myself who maybe went into a situation like you're discussing where you don't have insurance. The problem with that program is that the limits are very easily exceeded. The AGI limits are low, and the maximum payment that can go out is just a little over $100,000. And so unless you're a very small farmer, it really doesn't apply. And so in my experience, there really isn't yet a program that has the specificity to be very helpful to us growers. Thank
My
you.
time has expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentlelady from Ohio, Ms. Brown, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson and Ranking Member Craig. The importance of specialty crops in this country cannot be understated. These are the foods that families across the country eat every day: fruits, vegetables, and nuts that fill the shelves of our grocery stores, stock our farmers markets, and end up on lunch trays in school cafeterias and dinner tables every night. In Ohio, specialty crops are one of the major backbones of our agriculture sector, ranging from cucumbers and pumpkins to apples and grapes. These products can be found in every corner of the state, keeping family farms running, strengthening local supply chains, and benefiting rural and urban communities alike. We here on the Agriculture Committee know just how tough things are in farm country right now, not only for the commodity growers, but also for specialty crop producers. Rising input costs, new pests and diseases, extreme weather, and uncertainty around tariff policy and the Farm Bill have left our producers in uncharted territory. Just last week, I sat down with farmers from Ohio, and one sixth-generation grower told me something that I haven't heard since I joined the Agriculture Committee. He said that for the first time, he wasn't sure if he wanted to pass his farm on to his children, simply because of the uncertainty and economic burden they would be facing. That kind of uncertainty should set alarm bells off for all of us, because if multi-generational family farmers are questioning whether there's a future in farming, then it's time for Congress to take a hard look at what more we can do to give them stability and a fighting. In your testimony, you mentioned that programs like the Specialty Crop Block Grants and the Specialty Crop Research Initiative have been lifelines for growers, especially when specialty crop growers have historically not been able to access traditional farm safety net programs. Dr. Bourne, can you talk about what kinds of new federal support programs would most directly help specialty crop farmers like those in Michigan, Ohio, and across the country?
Well, certainly, and I appreciate the question and that sentiment around the concern that Ohio growers are having about the future viability of operations. I can share that that's been seen in Michigan as well. There's been a lot of work standing up crop insurance and safety net programs for a lot of commodity crops. As was previously noted earlier here, that there are significant challenges around how you do that within a specialty crop sphere when there's a lot more variability and there's a lot of complicating factors. Without going into a lot of detail about specific provisions, I would just say that the ability to be able to have those kinds of safety net programs that provide some certainty long-term for these crops, especially in permanent crops, when there's got to be an additional planning and thought processing around what the future of these crops look like, that kind of work is going to be really critical to providing more certainty and keeping more farmers on farms moving forward.
Thank you. And Dr. Boring, I was really interested to hear about the work that's coming out of Michigan's Regenerative Agriculture Program and the way it's helping farmers improve soil health, profitability, and resilience. In Ohio, many of our farmers are already using conservation practices like cover crops and crop rotation. Can you share what specific results you've seen from this program and whether you think it could be scaled up into a model for federal policy to support specialty crop producers nationwide?
Absolutely. Let me talk about two provisions and real focus areas for this. First and foremost, our efforts in Regen Ag are going to be about building additional profitability for growers. Certainly how you control input costs to some extent, but even more importantly, about how you might capture premiums for crops that are grown when we've got a variety of outcomes that are environmentally and economically advantageous and that are aligned with consumer preferences and desirability. The other aspect, I would say, is how we build resiliency into our cropping systems. So when we talk about the challenges within crop insurance and mitigating from some of these weather challenges, we know investments in soil health build resiliency in soils. It becomes a longer-term approach then of how we're adding in additional risk mitigation steps and giving farmers tools to improve resilience in their operations so that it's not simply a reliance on crop insurance alone.
Thank you so much. And just want to say thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. Specialty crops are so important, and it's not easy work, so thank you all for your commitment to feeding this country. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentle lady yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Kelly, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Brennan, Ms. Brennan, I had a question for you, but I don't need it answered, but I want to get it on the record. One of the biggest challenges growers face is labor. With the Department of Labor's adverse effect wage rate causing labor costs to skyrocket, this is really impacting specialty growers in Mississippi, our sweet potato growers and those folks, and you've already affirmed that. But this is one of the most significant impacts on our small farmers is the ability to pay a wage that is unfair right now because of a rule that is that doesn't make sense. So I hope our secretary will address that. To our witnesses, research institutions like Mississippi State University are developing new sweet potato varieties, including purple varieties popular in Asia. Why is it important that Congress continue supporting breeding and research programs that can lead to higher value crops and new consumer markets?
I'll touch on a state like Michigan that has seen a lot of success in these public breeding programs, right? Whether it's dry beans, it's wheat, it's a lot of our horticulture crops. The investments in public breeding programs like that are essential to keep moving this work ahead. It's true for Michigan growers, but you look at some of our work at Michigan State University in dry beans, potatoes, those are efforts that have international focus as well. That investment in public breeding is absolutely essential to keeping specialty crops going.
Thank you for your answer on that. And I'm glad that I don't have an accent like you. I have a good neutral accent. I want to ask about how will doubling of market access program and foreign market development signed into law on July the 4th impact specialty crops for any of you?
Congressman, I would just say that anything that adds to our competitiveness, both globally and domestically, we would appreciate.
And then final question, when it comes to creating new domestic markets, how can nutrition programs like Gus Nip and the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program be used more effectively to increase sweet potato consumption and other specialty crop, especially among children?
I would say, I'm proud to represent a Midwest accent here too, by the way. You know, the continued investment in locally grown specialty crops into communities, I think, is a really big piece of how we provide more economic opportunities in places that have been left behind in a lot of ways, increase quality of life, livability of rural places. In too many places in Michigan, I'm sure it's true in a lot of your districts, people are moving away from rural areas because they don't see opportunities and there isn't high enough quality of life. It's an area we're really working in Michigan to build opportunities for farms to invest, farms of all kinds, farms to diversify, new farmers to get into spaces. It's having local grocery access. It's about having high quality food in schools, hospitals, institutions. That's a real source of investment in a positive area where we can continue to grow agriculture and have that work of agriculture seen as more broadly impacting rural and urban areas alike.
I thank the witnesses and thank you for being here today and testifying. It's so important that we continue to do things that make our farmers stronger, especially our rural and smaller farmers. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Thank him, and now recognize Gentlelady from Hawaii, Mr. Kuda, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, nearly every crop that we grow in Hawaii is considered a specialty crop, but for us, these are staple crops. From canoe crops like ulu and kalo or maya. Maya is banana, ulu is breadfruit, kalo is taro, or to Asian specialty crops like wonbok, daikon, lychee. These are the foods that we eat every day. Specialty crop producers are literally the backbone of our local food system in an island state that imports nearly 90% of what we eat. And if we are to meet our goals of trying to decrease our dependency on imported food, specialty crops are a major part of that answer. But these crops and growers face challenges, as you can imagine, magnified by our unique geography. We have some of the highest shipping costs in the country. We have exposure to hurricanes, tropical storms, drought, wildfire. We have an overrun of ungulates, quite frankly, that are literally stuck on an island to breed and destroy crops and, lands. Volcanic eruptions and lava, and invasive species like coffee rhinoceros beetle, coconut coffee bearer borer, and the rose-ringed parakeet that can literally devastate and take out a crop on acres overnight. And so for us, programs like the Regional Food Business Centers, that was $400 million, local food for school programs, and local food purchasing assistance, which was $1 billion. They had been vital in strengthening our local food systems, but as you know, cut and eliminated by the Trump administration. These played a key role in connecting producers, processors, and buyers with regional markets, and as you can imagine, providing the much-needed technical support and infrastructure to be able to support our specialty producers. The question I have, Dr. Boehringer, for anyone who wants to answer is, it's been said by USDA that the specialty crop block grant can take the place of what the RFBC was to many different people. I do not believe that it can fill the gap. Do you think that the specialty crop block grant program can realistically replace the coordination, technical assistance, and capacity building support lost by the RFBCs? And, is this program designed to support comprehensive regional food security, or does it have limitations that leave key food business development needs unmet?
I appreciate the question there of the importance of those programs. And it's really been an area that we've seen investment on a state level of our Farm to Family program of the genesis of complementary efforts to some of these federally funded aspects. We do have quite a bit of flexibility of how we deploy specialty crop block grant funding. The majority of that does go to pest pressures and the advancement of new technologies. We do a little bit of marketing access and new market development within that kind of work, but they tend to be very project focused instead of those investments in collaboration and building an ecosystem for success of these kinds of programs. So those investments into local foods, the systems by which to facilitate this work coming together are going to remain very critical. And as we talk about these shared interests of advancing local foods, local quality of life, economic opportunities for farms, having those kinds of systems by which to facilitate market access and how products move are going to be really important to achieve those objectives.
I'd agree with you that it really seems like that market access, that technical assistance that farmers, especially small farmers, micro farmers, I would argue even, that they rely on, that's going to fall through the cracks with this. And so given this is still the universe that we are dealing with, what thoughts do you have, especially in the area of research, and looking at invasive species and disease, which is a huge threat and can literally take out a specialty crop, overnight, if you really think about that. What are any one of your thoughts in terms of how USDA needs to better coordinate SCBGs, perhaps APHIS funding, maybe even SCRI? They tend to be siloed, but at this point, we don't have time or room for error. We literally have funds being taken away when you think about it for technical application, but what more do you think we need to do to actually take down the silos and more perhaps integrate some of the things APHIS and pest disease funds are discovering and incorporating that with how it's executed with specialty crop development grants and other funds perhaps?
Success in emergency response, whether in invasive species, whether that's in an animal disease, whether it's in new and emerging threats, the investments in coordination are really critical. So Michigan is a state that was on the spearhead of HBAI a year ago, really underscored these needs into how we coordinate efforts across multi-agencies, multi-jurisdictions to have those kinds of responses. So invasive species, that kind of work to protect these really critical cropping industries, absolutely essential.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll add in another question later about staffing. I will add that I am very concerned with the staff reductions we're seeing on all these levels. NIFA, 18% reduction in staff. This is going to make that coordination more difficult. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. Now recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Boss.
Thank you,
for 5
Mr. Chairman.
minutes.
I want to thank you all for being here today. You know, the USDA administration, specialty crop programs, over 250,000 producers, including many in my district. Southern Illinois is one of the most diverse ag districts in the country, and with vineyards, orchards, rice, many other specialty crops, peaches. I was happy to see the number of previous provisions included in the Working Families Tax Cut, especially to promote research and trade for specialty crops and expand our commercial export markets. Ms. Brennan, can you speak to the importance of keeping specialty crops competitive in the market, and how do you see the specialty crop export market expanding through the Supplemental Agricultural Trade Promotion Program?
I mean, I would say that any support we can give a specialty crop for competitiveness anywhere is going to be much appreciated by the industry overall. I would be glad to get you additional information from IFPA to your office and your staff on some of the other program questions you had.
Thank you. As a few of you noted in your testimonies, H.R. 1 provided a significant increase in funding for specialty crops research initiatives. Dr. Boring, in 2023, the Illinois Agriculture Research received $3.53 million from the specialty crops research initiatives to develop the automation of harvesting for apples and specialty crop producers. As you know, labor costs are substantial expense for specialty crops production. Could you explain how the specialty crop research initiatives help producers stay ahead of the next disease or pest threat, and how the increased funding for the initiatives from H.R. 1 will make an impact on labor costs?
Well, absolutely. You hit on both the mechanization piece of why those kinds of technological investments are really critical, and the continued funding and certainty of what entomology, pathology investments at research institutions like Michigan State continue are so critical, even across these multi-regional efforts here. That kind of certainty of how we long-term fund research programs is really critical to having long-term consistency. A lot of these are not overnight solutions. Certainly, investments in technology take a long time to come to fruition. A lot of this work around varietal development, about how we're deploying IPM practices to respond to pest, disease issues, those are long-term investments here. So the stability, the continued investment to ramp up and have critical mass of those research programs, really critical to achieving success.
So, for getting this on the record is vitally important to me. During our August work period, I went out and visited with a lot of my specialty crop growers. They grow apples, they grow peaches, and one thing that was brought up that I think is vitally important as we talk trade and the concern that we have with tariffs and everything like that. The concern each one of them had was they wanted us to take notice that with the peaches and with the apples, it isn't that they are competing against the neighbor or the person the county over, or even Georgia with their peaches, but the foreign markets that come in that produce at such a cheaper price than they possibly can. Would any of you care to comment on that, on where we're at? And because I don't think people understand that.
I'll bring up 2 points. Really, that our apple market in Michigan, our growers depend on Pacific Northwest exports to be able to have ample domestic consumption capacity for Michigan and kind of upper Midwest apples. So while Michigan apples specifically are exported a lot, we have a vested interest in seeing that kind of exports from across the country. I'll say 2, for crops like asparagus, cherries, blueberries, imports coming in, really do threaten our industry and really are providing a cap then on what the future possibilities for the industry might be. Those import pressures are real and significant for our growers.
Can I just add quickly? I referenced it in my testimony, but the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance has some pretty robust recommendations related to trade enforcement that I would encourage you and your staff to look to that lines that out pretty directly.
Thank you all. I appreciate that. And I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Sorensen, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just last week, I was asked on Ag Radio if I agreed with Senator Chuck Grassley that we are in a farm crisis. I didn't even have to think about it. My opinion is based on the fact that I hear directly from our producers growing the crops that feed and fuel our country. And the farmers are hurting. Trade relations, they're getting worse. Farmers are paying the price for tariffs. Our #1 exporter of soybeans didn't drop from #1. China didn't drop from #1 to #2. It went from #1 to off the list. We should be securing and restoring other export countries because our farmers are the best in the world. But the cost of fertilizers and pesticides are going up through the roof now. And people in my district have told me that they're running out of capital, and now they have to take on high-interest loans just to survive. And I'm tired of people saying that we need to do more, but then no one's willing to come up with any solutions. So here we are in the first full committee hearing back from August recess. Bless you. We're not taking on the solutions that would provide our specialty growers with the certainty that you need. We need solutions for research, for rural broadband and conservation. Whether you're growing carrots, almonds, peaches, apples, or corn, we need solutions. And let's be crystal clear, whether it is specialty crops or row crops, more farmers are unfortunately having to give up. We shouldn't blame them. Ranking Member Craig, as well as the perseverant members on this side of the aisle, and I appreciate those willing to engage on the other side as well, we're pleading to get the leftovers from the Farm Bill out in a bipartisan way. And every day we delay, we increase the risk of not just a crisis in agriculture, but a failure of American agriculture. So to the panel, this isn't just about policy. Because in March, the Trump administration canceled more than $1 billion for programs like the Local Food Purchase Assistant Cooperative Agreement Program. Basically, it helps farmers provide fresh produce to local schools and food banks. And last month, Secretary Rollins announced a similar program, but only provided a teeny tiny little fraction of the breadth that we need. So to our panel, could you help us understand the impact that cutting funding has for specialty producers in our local markets?
Congressman, I'll maybe go first. Thank you for your question. I can just certainly reaffirm the real cost of uncertainty. You're outlining various aspects that are current in today's market. And just without highlighting any particular import or export issue, I would just say with certainty that there is so much unknown that it's very challenging for those of us who are small family farmers to commit to making long-term capital expenditures because we don't know what tomorrow brings. And so I would tell you that we can live with almost any outcome, but having to check each day to find out what the particular rules are for a particular country, incoming or outgoing, is very unsettling. And so we would like to see certainty around our business environment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll speak a little bit and give a specific example of some of the, the opportunities of how we grow demand, right? And some of the ramifications, some of these cuts, some of the work that we're doing here in Michigan. It's difficult for institutions, it's difficult for public entities, maybe hospitals, colleges, schools, to be sourcing local produce, right? Of local products. There's cost to the aggregation, to the distribution, the transportation, having critical mass of products. Investments into aggregation, bringing those things together, increasing market access, have definitive impacts in what demand on local levels looks like. We import an alarming amount of our fruits and vegetables into this country. Shifting the focus to value in a more significant way, domestic production of those, even hyper-local production, that that represents an opportunity of growth for this sector that all of us represent that does have meaningful potential.
Thank you. As of May, and I know my time is brief, the USDA's workforce accepted the Trump administration's deferred resignation offer. How has that impacted our specialty growers?
We interact with USDA a lot, Congressman, around our citrus program, and I don't know enough about their budget to be able to tell you if there have been direct impacts. But I can tell you that we rely on them doing their job for us to do ours. And so we need to ensure that the programs stay funded to the point they can do their jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for indulging me on a few extra points. I'll stay after class if we can work on the Farm Bill. I appreciate your leadership.
I'm up for it. Let's do it. Now recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Moore, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the witnesses being here today. Specialty crops are a cornerstone of American agriculture, providing both economic strength, essential nutrition for the American public. And currently in Alabama, we're ranked top 10 sweet potato producers in all of the states. Showing how important this sector is to our growers, One Big Beautiful Bill makes a strong investment in these growers by doubling the Specialty Crop Research Initiative funding to $175 million starting annually in FY26, extending support for citrus disease research and increasing resources for plant pests and disease prevention. These commitments ensure farmers have some of the tools to stay competitive while protecting the long-term health of not only Alabama's, but America's specialty crop insurance. Dr. Boring, your testimony greatly described the importance of the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program for the state of Michigan. In your view, how might the increase in funding shape the future of specialty crop production for our entire nation?
Appreciate the question about how we really broaden the impacts of this. For us in Michigan, it's having that additional funding means we can be spending time researching pest pressures, disease threats in a variety of different crops, right? We have major crops in Michigan, right? Cherries, asparagus, blueberries. We have a lot of secondary crops, right? Celery, rutabagas, a variety of smaller crops that don't always get the attention in the research investments in this way. Increased funding means we have capacity to be investing in those really niche crops that still have significant challenges that do need research investment at the same time.
Dr. Scally? That's the Alabama way of saying that. I'm not sure if that's right. You described the unique funding opportunities provided by specialty crop research initiatives in your testimony. Can you explain the impact those opportunities will have with ongoing and future research efforts?
Absolutely. Thank you, Congressman. So as I said, SCRI is a very unique program where we can do transdisciplinary and multi-state institute research programs where you can get, we can't work in silos, right? As a honeybee biologist, I can't just focus on one thing. So I need collaborators on addressing pests and disease problems or other things in honeybees as well. So I think this program is really unique in the sense that it gets all the collaborators together from multi-state. So the example I was giving before, I have colleagues from Mississippi, Washington, California, and Oregon working on the same project. So I think there's a lot of value in SCRI because it's uniquely qualified to address some of those big problems that can't be solved by smaller programs like AFRI or other grants.
Dr. Boylan, back to you. You also mentioned growers have expressed their concerns over unpredictable growing conditions, and we recognize coordination between local, state, and federal partners in the ongoing process. Can you tell us more about those coordination efforts, and are there specific barriers that hinder the coordination?
Absolutely. We really are at the front lines of dealing with a lot of shifting weather patterns in states like Michigan. A lot of our specialty crops are located on the west side of the state that experience those moderating temperatures from the Great Lakes. As weather patterns change, as a variety of factors continue to evolve. The coordination between the large agencies, National Weather Service, for instance, NOAA, the ability to predict and then to be responding to some of these threats in real time, all the way from federal agencies, state level organizations like Michigan State University, down to the local levels, really made critical to having these multifaceted responses to these challenging situations in specialty crops.
Thank you. This is kind of for any of the panel of witnesses. Are there any things we haven't discussed? How can Congress act to shape the federal policy for future of the industry? In other words, are there any things we're missing that you guys see that we need to be aware of? And then whoever, I got about a minute left, so. You all get 15 seconds apiece.
I'll just take one comment, Congressman, and that is that my industry, when I say mine, I'm talking about the lawn and garden industry across the country. Those of us who grow flowers and very discretionary items are very concerned about inflation. We sometimes get accused by our commodity crop colleagues of having the pleasure and the luxury of setting our own prices. But the reality is we've been setting the prices to the point to where our customers can't afford our products anymore. And so we're running out of customers. And in our business, for the last 3 years, our unit counts have declined each year because our cost to our customers has increased. It's just the demand curve is killing us. And so I would tell you that when I sit here and think about what's really keeping me up at night, it's the concern around pricing discretionary items like flowers that people don't have to buy out of the consumer's marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize, folks. I ran out of time, but I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Figures, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the panel, thank you guys for all being here. And this, between Barry and myself, this is the Alabama hour, I guess, of the Alabama 10 minutes of the, Alabama 10 minutes of the hearing. But we both have the privilege of representing the state of Alabama, and specialty crops there are, like many of the states you guys represent, very important to the local economy and to the ag industry, whether we're talking peaches, sweet potatoes, blueberries, pecans, strawberries. These are the crops that I grew up seeing along the state highways as a child. But unfortunately, we know the ag industry as a whole, especially our locally small farms, are really feeling the crunch and really feeling the pressure of today's economy and changes that we've seen over the past several years and decades, quite honestly, in the industry. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can on this committee. And one of the reasons I wanted to be on this committee as a freshman member was to ensure that we're doing what we can to modernize our outlook and make our policies more reflective of the current environment that our farmers are facing. To that extent, Ms. Brennan, my first question is to you. You noted in your testimony that only 1 in 10 Americans consume the recommended servings of fruit and vegetables. Well, I'm going to one-up you because we've seen studies in the state of Alabama that say 9 in 10 Alabamians do not consume the recommended dietary guidelines for fruit and vegetable consumptions, which I guess that will come as no surprise then that we have one of the lowest life expectancies in the country. But nevertheless, we want to do everything that we can to ensure that people have access and are making good dietary guidelines. But we also understand the nexus between those choices and support for our local farmers. So, what role do cancellations of programs that provide funding for local food initiatives and nutrition education and garden programs in school and child care centers play in the partnership between producers and consumers?
I mean, anytime we're talking about affecting consumption or access to consumption, that should be a concern. I think we should also understand the idea that both the recipient of those programs and the farmer are benefiting from those programs. So that's certainly something that we will continue to have that conversation and beat that drum as a specialty crop grower who enjoys providing fresh and healthy produce to those recipients of the programs.
Got it. And along those same lines, I think what's often lost in the conversations that we have here around SNAP benefits is that SNAP benefits, to my understanding, and I think to everyone's knowledge, they can only really be spent in one industry, right? And that's the grocery store. But in seeing cuts to programs like SNAP, can you talk about whether or not that undermines efforts to support local farmers?
Well, I mean, I think we would like to see our commodity in the grocery baskets of all Americans, regardless of whether or not they're on federal programs. So I see your point, and I would understand and agree that that's concerning.
Mm-hmm. And we all know that USDA is undergoing a reorganization right now that's going to shift a lot of priorities and in an attempt to streamline programs. But it's going to change how resources are distributed. What impacts do you guys, to the extent that you're familiar with what USDA is considering? I'll start with you, Mr. Frantz, so as to not make this the Ms. Brennan show. What impact do you see that having, particularly on rural farmers, whether it's in Alabama or other states? Because we're seeing in Alabama proposals that will shift some things up to, I think, Raleigh, North Carolina, and some other things to Kansas City, which I'm not sure how good your geography is. Neither one of them are close to Alabama.
Thank you, Congressman. We do rely on a healthy USDA. And I would say to you that I'm agnostic about where they're located. It's important to me that the programs that we interact with them are properly staffed, and that if they do make moves, and as they make moves, that the programs move successfully with them. There is one exception, and that is that they have repositories of trees and shrubs in the Clean Plant Network that we rely on, and those plants are planted in the ground. And so it would be important to me that if moves are made, that the trees that are important to our national security are moved along with them or protected when if they're left behind.
Right, and thank you. And I'll just end with a comment. We've heard some commentary about the adverse effect wages. And, one thing I think that we have to keep top of mind is that the purpose of that is to protect American workers. Now, I am one that believes those wages certainly have to be reflective of the realistic conditions and also offset costs that are being absorbed by the employers. But I think, it's important that we don't forget that that's why that's there, through the same vein as why we want to protect American farmers in terms of import capacities, in terms of specialty crops or any other crops that are coming in. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Washington State, Mr. Newhouse, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and also want to thank the Ranking Member Craig for this very important hearing today, and thank our panelists for being here. Sometimes specialty crops are referred to as minor crops. I want to make sure that people truly understand and not be confused about that, about their importance. Many times they are high cost, labor intensive, high overhead and infrastructure, very important to our local economies. And I truly do appreciate the focus that this committee is taking on this part of the agricultural industry. As a third generation hop, grape, and fruit farmer myself, I think I understand some of the issues that have been brought up today, and I appreciate the full committee's attention on the issues facing not just specialty crop growers, but agriculture in general throughout the country. We truly are at a very difficult position, and we are going to come up with some answers. We have come up with some answers, and we're looking for help from the outside for some more input on what more we can do. I want to start with Ms. Brennan first. And first of all, thank you for having a presence in my district. Appreciate very much the contributions to the economy there. You mentioned in your testimony the need for enhanced mechanization within the specialty crop industry. And as many of you have mentioned, the issue of labor is huge, particularly when it comes to the operation and harvest of specialty crops. And attention to detail is particularly important when it comes to things such as apples, for instance, which Washington raises one or two of. Nobody in the grocery store is going to buy an apple that is bruised. They're just not going to do it. So we've got to be very thoughtful about what we do. Could you talk a little bit more about the need for potential return on investment when it comes to the expansion of mechanization and automation within the specialty crop industry?
Absolutely, thank you. And Congressman Newhouse, we appreciate the opportunity to be in your district as much as you appreciate us. But I would just add that specialty crops accounts for about 1/3 of the cash receipts in U.S. crops, but receives only a fraction of dollars related to research and development. So I think anything that Congress can do for strategic investment in that area will really act as a signal to the tech world. As it stands right now, they're not going to necessarily invest in something where the market is so targeted and so small. So if the federal government is willing to invest in that area, I believe we'll see additional development.
Thank you. My next question, I'm happy to open it up to others. You all have provided fantastic input on this. While we're talking about research, what role does precision agriculture play in current operations, and how can federal research help support and expand those technologies across the specialty crop sector?
Congressman, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an operation today that isn't utilizing precision ag practices every day, day in, day out. But I would add that I think they are always looking for additional research opportunities and dollars in those areas. So often we are faced with headwinds that Mr. Franz referenced earlier, and so we're focused there and maybe not able to do the investment in other areas that maybe we want to at the time because we're so focused on the headwinds. So that would be, I don't know if Mr. Franz has additional nuance to that, but.
Congressman, I'll just make a quick comment to, first of all, to thank you for your help, stalwart help for years on the Farm Worker Modernization Act. You've been a friend to horticulture, and I appreciate it very much. On the automation question, we are so desperate for labor at times that we have thrown ROI to the wind from time to time and invested in automation just on a hope and a prayer, because things are that tight labor-wise, especially over the last few years. Thank you.
And time goes by so darn fast, but I want to touch on the whole issue of trade. Very important for specialty crops, truly is. You mentioned in your testimony as well, I heard several of you talk about the importance of the market access program, the other things that we have put in place as Congress to help specialty crops and agriculture export. We accomplished something that I've been working on for a long time. We doubled the amount of money invested in market access, as well as the specialty crop efforts to increase exports. And so I just want, this legislation that was passed on and signed on July 4th, H.R. 1, did some great things for agriculture. Could you talk about some of the potential that we could see from increasing our efforts in market development?
Is there time for me to answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, should
Yes.
I proceed? Okay, the first one is we're very grateful for several provisions in that act. To your question about the market access, because we were able to attribute those dollars towards labor, I already mentioned that's our biggest expense. That funding has helped us keep our costing down this year when it otherwise would have increased more. So first of all, it's been a direct benefit to our customers through the helping to cover our labor cost. The second one I wanted to comment on is the ability to direct expense our capital expenditures. I already mentioned the times are uncertain. Being able to have tax benefits realized immedely has allowed my brother and I to feel better about making CapEx decisions that would otherwise have been held off. Thank you.
Well, as you noted too, my time is running up. I just want to thank you all for being here today and being part of this very important discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologize for going over, but I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Now, please recognize the gentleman from New Mexico, Mr. Vasquez, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member Craig, and thank you to today's witnesses for being here today. Specialty crops are the backbone of agriculture in my district. If you look at the map that was included in the documents, there's a little black area there in Doña Ana County, in Otero County, and Luna County. That's in southern New Mexico. And we have world-famous Hatch chili. We have amazing Barker yellow onions and pistachios. And these crops don't just sustain our economy, they sustain our way of life. They are who we are. It's a story of our culture, our people, our identity, and it's how families gather around the table. Last week, I convened a meeting with my agriculture advisory group that includes specialty crop producers from across my district. And their biggest frustration was that we've gone 2 years without a farm bill. They also talked about rising input costs. They talked about tariffs, and they talked about funding freezes. And for them, it wasn't just a policy debate. It was something that could make or break their family farms. And so it's my belief that we can't keep playing politics with farmland and with specialty crop producers, because we lose more than just profits in my district. We lose generations of investment. We lose family legacies. We lose productive land. And so those conversations I'm having with producers makes it also very hard for the next generation of farmers to be able to be successful in starting their own business or taking over the family farm. And as they see that those farms around them are potentially talking about filing for bankruptcy, it's very hard to entice new young farmers to take over the family business. And so
whether it's tariffs, whether it's losing the workforce, supply chain costs that are driving up these unsustainable levels. These are just added costs that are already eating into thin margins that we know that they have. And so in my district in particular, it's harming the pecan and the pistachio growers. They're now having to look for other markets. They've just lost their biggest market, like a lot of farmers in this country have. And they are struggling to understand what is happening with this farm bill. So my question first is for Mr. France. Mr. France, do you think that this administration's trade posture, let's call it a trade war, is raising costs for family farmers and specialty crop producers?
Thank you, Congressman, for your question. I would say to you that in my experience, in my business, we have yet to experience costs that have moved our costing, material changes. What we have is an uncertainty from our customers and our vendors. And that uncertainty is causing people to trend prices up, potentially prematurely, because in our experience, the tariffs that directly affect us have continued to be delayed.
So, Mr. France, would you say certainty then would be a good thing?
We're looking for certainty, yes, sir.
Okay. And then in terms of the agricultural workforce system, this question is for you as well, Mr. France. What are the impacts that you're seeing within your business or other specialty crop producers in terms of the labor shortage?
Congressman, that's a very good question. Thanks for asking it. The lack of sufficient labor at times has prevented us from having the quality products we wish because we can't get the work done. And it's preventing us from growing our business and seizing opportunities that are coming our way. We urgently need a bipartisan legal ag workforce solution.
Thank you, Mr. France. I really appreciate that. And I will commend Chairman Thompson because he convened a bipartisan group of members of this committee to work on immigration reform as it pertains to the agriculture industry and what some of our ideas were for programs like H-2A and H-2B. And we put out a report on that. And so I'd love to see my colleagues, everyone on this committee, help to push forward these types of policies that are going to support the agricultural workforce that in the end support family farms, rural communities, rural businesses. That's something that's desperately needed in this country. And I think the more that we hear from folks like you all today about the impact that we're having, hopefully the more that it hits home with everybody that serves in this body so that we can actually get something done. That's really important. That's something that I encourage my colleagues to continue those conversations. That was a bipartisan working group, and I believe we had some good results. And so we have legislation out there like the Farm Worker Modernization Act that is really important. Mr. Carbajal has introduced it. We've been waiting for some action on that, so we'd love to see that. We'd love to make sure that those pistachio growers, that yellow Barker onion that accounts for over 50% of the nation's onions in September, that we can keep those workers there, that we can keep those onions from rotting in the field, and that we can get our specialty crops like pecans and pistachios out to good markets and keep these families in business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Yielding back, now recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Taylor, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Thompson and Ranking Member Craig, for hosting this hearing today, and thank you to our witnesses for traveling here and to provide your expertise to this committee. You guys came a long way, and I appreciate your sacrifices. At least Dr. Boring got to get out of Michigan for a little while, which is good. My district is in southern Ohio, which is by no means the biggest specialty crop area of the country. There's a significant presence from several farmers and companies, but nothing like other areas of the country. Therefore, when Ohioans go to the grocery store, it's almost always guaranteed that we're buying 2,000-mile lettuce that could be up to a week old. This means you're paying for transportation costs and for storage, and the produce you're buying will go bad much quicker than lettuce you could buy locally. Obviously, this is not just the case with lettuce, but with fruits and vegetables as well. I visited one business in my area, not in my district, called 80 Acres, which is an indoor vertical farm in Ohio that I believe provides a unique model for ensuring everyone in both rural and urban areas has access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Mr. France, with that in mind, how do you see greenhouses or vertical farms transforming rural America, if you think that's possible?
Thank you, Mr. Congressman. American Hort has a lot of greenhouse customers, greenhouse members. And so in general, we're supportive of most anything that supports greenhouse growth. And as a greenhouse owner myself, I recognize the potential to have a lot of climate controls and do things in climates that otherwise wouldn't be possible. But outside of that, I don't have any particular expertise in vertical farming.
In an area like Ohio where it may not be the best climate for specialty crops, what can we do to promote more farms like that to provide fresh produce for people? If anybody have any ideas on promoting things like that? He said it's not really his area, but.
I would just say the recognition of the value in these investments, right? The value of greenhouse production, the value of hoop houses, the value of some of these season extending technologies that do pose significant capital restraints on small farms looking to diversify and supply local areas with local produce, right? Having these kinds of dollars spent seen as investments in communities, I think is really a fundamental pivot to how we view this kind of work.
Thank you. Having a reliable supply of produce could not only benefit farmers, but it could also greatly help with the health of our communities across the United States. A 2024 study found that nearly 3 in 4 adults in the U.S. are now considered overweight or obese. Southern Ohio is no exception. Actually, it's worse than that there. There are several counties in our district that have obesity rates. One is, in fact, in the top 5 counties in the country for obesity. Obviously, it's not just diet that can change these trends, but having more access to fruits and vegetables would definitely help. Dr. Boring, could you talk about how affordable and consistent access to fresh produce could help combat the obesity epidemic in this country? And specifically, has it helped address these issues in Michigan where you're serving now?
Absolutely. I think that the statement around how we modernize our outlook on agriculture, I think, is really critical here. And having agriculture seen as solutions to these bigger issues that are occurring across the country, right? Livability communities, the pursuit of the American dream for a lot of rural areas, how agriculture plays into the health of people, communities. That has to be the way in which we approach this kind of work. And so investments into specialty crops being seen as investments into our future as a country, food security, the health of people. I think that's a really fundamental position shift here that drives the kind of investments that get at what you're talking about and why this work is important for communities.
Thank you. Anybody else got any ideas on that one? Thank you.
I would just add that we have, and the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance and IFPA have been wildly supportive of increase with the fresh fruit and vegetable program in elementary schools and the potential expansion. I think we know, any of us who have children, that the earlier you expose them to fresh fruits and vegetables, the more likely they're going to eat those throughout their life. So I would add to that as well.
Again, thank you all for being here today, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentlelady from Maine, Ms. Pingree, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for having this hearing. And thank you so much to all of you for spending your time with us. I probably could spend my whole time just kind of ranting about so many of the things that my colleagues have already discussed, and first and foremost is just the very idea that we call this specialty crops. I think that most of you realize you're working in a field about vital nutritious items, or whether it's home horticulture, really critical things to our environment. So I apologize that for so long we've called this a specialty item when it really is essential nutrition in the very fruits and vegetables we depend on every day, and thank you for working in that industry. I'm particularly worried about the budget cuts and the cuts that have already been done, whether it's at the USDA or some of the other programs that I know in my state our specialty crop growers particularly depend on. In these challenging times, whether it's in relation to the tariffs or the extreme weather that we've been having in our state, we had a very wet spring, so our pollinators couldn't do their jobs in the blueberry fields, and now we haven't had much rain since July, so we're in an extreme drought. And we really need that assistance from the federal government, particularly when it comes to the local offices, the NRCS, and other places that are understaffed. We've lost most of our engineers, so if you're looking for drought planning assistance, how to do more irrigation, the help just isn't there. And one of the cuts that has been mentioned before, but I was really disappointed to see, was that last March USDA canceled the $1 billion that went in the local food purchase assistance and local food for school programs. Combined, that was over $2 million to my state. Might not sound like a lot in a smaller state, but 1.3 million people, not that many farmers. This was a really good guaranteed source of income, and as so many of you have already mentioned, this is fresh fruits and vegetables that go into food pantries and to school lunch programs where we really want to make sure those are accessible and available. So do you have any of you want to comment on the importance of programs like that, or what you're also doing? I know in Michigan you've got some of your own programs going on, or the GusNet program, so many of the things that allow people to access healthy fruits and vegetables and give our farmers that guaranteed income that helps make them assure that they've got funding on the bottom line. I'll just go through whoever wants to discuss that.
I'll just briefly reiterate our Farm to Family program of investments in that work being seen as investments in the future of our state, right? It's economic opportunities for farms, certainly. But one of the greatest concerns I hear from farmers time and time again is the health of their communities and what the economic outlook for rural areas is, right? And what can it be? We've got to be providing solutions to communities and framing our work as investments beyond just agriculture and farms, but into communities so we have an ecosystem of success. That kind of work is really critical, starting at those early levels.
Thanks.
I mean, I think I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think anything that increases consumption and access in those programs and the recipients we're supportive of. Of course, we are having open, and IFPA is having open conversations with the administration and Congress, both sides of the aisle, the importance of those programs, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you, and I do want to say we have a bipartisan bill going on, largely growing out of this committee and the dissatisfaction with those funds being cut and looking for ways to make sure that on a bipartisan basis, this isn't a partisan issue, making sure your farmers in rural areas have that support. Let me just jump to crop insurance. You brought that up before, but all of you have given really good examples. Same thing. You know, we're experiencing this extreme weather, and New England has not been exempt from that. I already mentioned the rain in the spring, the drought now, and just the challenges that specialty crop, I just hate saying the word, but that farmers face. You know, so many successes have grown in our state because of the interest in purchasing locally, belonging to a CSA, farmers markets, all those things. But these are the very farmers that aren't commodity farmers, and it's almost impossible to use this system, as many of you have mentioned. So before I talk for too long, do you want to just talk about it a little bit more and why? Or any ideas that you have about how we could fix this finally so it works?
Yeah, thank you, Congresswoman. I understand you're an organic farmer yourself, so congratulations.
That's true. Spent many years, might even have a little dirt there right now from the weekend.
We have something in common. Thank you. I just appreciate you acknowledging that the specialty crop industry really does need help in the insurance area. Rather than get too far in the weeds, I would just say that there are pilot programs running at USDA, and I'm grateful for that. But I hope we can change them around to where they're actually effective, whether it's this controlled environment CE program that I'm particularly interested in but isn't helpful, or the Nursery Value Select, NVS, which is a catastrophic program that just doesn't ever reach the trigger to be helpful. So there are specific issues that need fixing, and I appreciate your attention to it. Thank you.
I ran out of time, and I'll be respectful of everyone else's time, but I do want to just note that you mentioned a couple of times your worries about inflation and the impact that could have on people using ornamentals, and I know how important the horticulture industry is, and just what a great benefit it was during the pandemic that so many more people decided to plant that garden and have sort of the therapeutic and family-based experience of doing that outside, and I would hate to see that go away. So thank you all for your work. Really great to have you here today.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you very much for your comments.
I thank the gentlelady and now recognize the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Feenstra, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member, for holding this hearing today, and thank you to our witnesses. Thank you for coming. I read your testimonies, very impressive. You know, I look at specialty crops, and they're so important to our agricultural community and, you know, to feeding the world, in essence, what you do. And there's so many pieces and parts that go into specialty crops when you start thinking about it, whether it be policy, regulatory environment, transportation, tax provisions. I want to talk briefly about tax provisions. You know, all these things sort of go bump in the night that they affect you. When we start thinking of tax provisions, you think of what we passed in the last bill, the reconciliation bill, whether it be the death tax, so you can move that family farm to the next generation. 199A, if you're a pass-through, you get a 25% qualified business income. Whether it be 179 depreciation, buying a piece of equipment. You know, these are all very important pieces. And Mr. France, I'd love for you to talk about what I just said. How is it important to you, and can you talk about some of these changes that might affect the family farm?
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. The provisions in your recently passed budget bill are extremely helpful, and we're very grateful for them. So thank you. I'll speak first to the estate tax. My brother Keith and I were blessed to have parents that transitioned ownership of our farm 25 years ago. And now here we are looking at the blessing, really, of the opportunity of passing the farm to our children in the next decade. And were it not for the increase to $15 million per individual of the lifetime exemption and the permanency that you've brought to the law, it likely wouldn't be able to be possible in California, where farm real estate is so expensive. So very grateful for that. I've already touched on bonus depreciation in a little way, but R&D tax credits as well. That's something we take advantage of and we're very grateful for. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you, and I'm glad you addressed that. I mean, again, it's about passing that family farm to the next generation, and we see that all over the agricultural landscape of the great concern of how do you, instead of having corporate farmers buy the land, how do we get it to the next generation, and the death tax is a big part of that. I want to talk a little bit about another issue when it comes to transportation of goods. And if you start looking around the world, how do we open new markets, especially for specialty crops? A lot of specialty crops need refrigeration. And how do we move into countries like Africa and other warmer climates when we don't have refrigeration? And I want to talk to Mr. Boring about this. Can you talk about the importance of cold chain capacity and the markets, and especially the specialty crops when it comes to exporting and trying to expand these horizons?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Constraints on cold storage capacity are something we continually hear in Michigan as well. Those being barriers to growers adding capacity, adding additional market access. And that even extends into the infrastructure investments of how we ship that product, right, as you talk about here. Having those kind of investments seen as greater good of how we rise the tide in specialty crops, I think is really critical. I'd also hit on two of it reinforces the need for a continued investment into research around how we have alternate storage capacity and preservation techniques for our crops, so that we can take some of these fresh market products, potentially put them into a stable format, dried otherwise, so that we can access some of these markets with acknowledgments of some of the constraints that are going to occur in those specific geographies.
Yeah, Doc, Dr. Boring, I think you're right. I mean, you think about research is so critical. And it's exciting to see what we're going to do in the next farm bill when it comes to research. It's the key. I mean, if we want to continue to be exporters to the global world, we have to do a lot more research. And obviously, cold chain storage is part of this, but we have a lot of work to do. So thank you for your comments. We've already talked about specialty crop insurance. I'm not going to get into that. It's so important. I heard some of your comments. To me, it's invaluable to make sure that we have some backing when we have catastrophic events, and we have that periodically. I'm from Iowa, second largest ag district in the country. When we have derechos or drought or whatever it might be, we have to have protection. So with that, I thank you for your witnesses, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Yields back. Now recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Budzinski, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Craig, for calling this hearing today. I want to say thank you to the witnesses as well for traveling here to be a part of this. I appreciate it. My district in Illinois is home to over 1 million acres of farmland. In fact, farms make up over 70% of the total land in my district. And while my district, like most of central and southern Illinois, is home to some of the highest yielding corn and soybean farms in the country, it is also home to a huge variety of specialty crop production as well. Collinsville, Illinois is the horseradish capital of the world, if you didn't know that. In fact, Collinsville supplies about 2/3 of the entire world's horseradish. I've heard from those farmers, and I'm sure many of you have as well, that specialty crop operations face unique challenges with access to labor. And of course, those needs have only gotten more complicated in the wake of the administration's immigration policies. Beyond horseradish production across my district, there are fruit and vegetable operations that supply our local communities with a variety of fresh, healthy, local food. I've had the privilege to visit Sologradia Farm in Urbana, Illinois, several times now, and have heard directly from them, as well as the organizations that they supply with their food. One serious concern they brought to me that I'm sure everyone has heard about is the cancellation of the Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement and the Local Foods for Schools programs. Not only has this been a problem for the farmers and the people they feed, but the University of Illinois Extension Illinois Eats program in my district administered these programs across the state of Illinois. I was proud to join Congressman Bresnahan and a great team of lawmakers to introduce the Local Farmers Feeding Our Communities Act earlier this summer to reinvest in these vital programs that I mentioned. But I think the heart of this is that farmers need market access for their products, whether domestically or internationally. I know Congressman Feenstra just spoke to that. A healthy farm economy relies on farmers having somewhere to sell. Director Boring, I am excited to see the success that Michigan's Farm to Family program has had in connecting specialty crop producers to local consumers. Can you elaborate a little bit on the impact of this program that it's had in both improving market access for farmers and increasing food security on a regional scale?
Well, certainly, and I appreciate the question there. I can highlight a few specific examples of work we've been able to do. And knowing this is really pretty a new program that we're looking to stand up here. We've specifically worked on creating opportunities for local grocery access in different places. We're replicating success of farm stop models that have been really pioneered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But the ability to put into smaller communities consignment-based grocery access, in essence, brick-and-mortar farmers markets, where local farmers are supplying products into those areas, but they don't have the hassle, necessarily, of manning a farmer's market in the evening and weekends. It really provides an avenue of how communities can have farm produce and food access in new and different ways, and have that viewed as a community asset to the livability of downtowns and an economic way for small farms to diversify in different ways. So the collaboration with other states, including Illinois, of how we kind of push those new models, I think is really exciting of where we might go with that work.
So you think that model could be replicated maybe in other places as well?
Yes, certainly.
And have you thought at all about what in the Farm Bill we would need to be prioritizing in order to see those types of programs be replicated?
Absolutely. I think some of the creations of new and unique pilot programs that recognize some of the work that is occurring in dynamic ways in states that's utilizing some creativity. And well, that's how we come up with a good policy, right? We take local ideas, we might replicate them, build them up at a state level, and hopefully some of those find their way to a federal level so we can replicate examples of success.
Okay. Thank you. I'll yield back. Thank you.
Generally yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Harris, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of you on the panel for your time and perseverance in hanging out throughout this time. As we've listened today, obviously specialty crops play a vital role in the American agriculture industry. In fact, in my home state of North Carolina, farmers produce a wide range of specialty crops like sweet potatoes, strawberries, cucumbers, and peanuts that feed our communities and provide thousands of jobs to hardworking North Carolinians. But too often I hear from constituents in my district that they consistently have to deal with excessive government regulations that hinder their ability to meet demand. Ms. Brennan, you mentioned similar concerns in your written testimony, saying the specialty crop industry is under siege from regulatory overreach and outdated policies. I want to ask you, if I can, in a few moments this afternoon, in your view, what specific regulations do you believe Congress could address to ease the burdens affecting farmers in the specialty crop industry?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. I appreciate it. I think there's any number of issues. The thing that comes to mind immediately for a number of us who maybe don't qualify for some of the programs are the AGI limits and things that are very tangible, boots on the ground issues that we could address in the long run that could assist us in qualifying for programs that maybe Mr. Franz and I wouldn't necessarily qualify for is the first thing that comes to mind.
Gotcha.
But I'm happy to send a long list to you, sir, after this
Well,
hearing.
and that would be helpful. When we're talking about
absolutely.
moving forward and we're talking about legislation, that would be important. And kind of going off that, Dr. Boring, I'll turn to you. In your role as a state-level agriculture policymaker, how does your agency balance state regulations while at the same time not overburdening producers with excess regulations that hinder their operation?
Well, I think you hit on a really critical element, and it's a fundamental piece of our department kind of ethos is the fact that we're partners with farms and agribusinesses across the state, right? Our mission here is to ensure compliance, provide clear, consistent rules by which businesses operate, and then help farms and agribusinesses of how they comply with these sorts of things. So our preeminent focus here is making sure that folks clearly understand things and us working as educational partners and resources of how we all get to where we need to go together.
Gotcha. Well, from your conversations with other state officials, how can reducing federal red tape empower the specialty crop producers to operate more efficiently and compete more effectively?
I think there's a lot of opportunity of just clarifying different regulatory rules, right? And we hear from growers a lot of times of how state-based regulation and requirements are oftentimes not well coordinated with federal. Addressing those kinds of issues there, I think are continued. It's the small little things like that that ultimately do add up and make a difference for growers.
Well, thank you for that insight. I believe that rather than micromanaging farmers, Washington should instead lower barriers and focus on building an environment that allows them to grow, innovate, and thrive, because that's what all of us want for our farmers. Mr. Franz, in your testimony, you spoke to how the nursery industry is actually impacted by the inflationary pressures, many of which were exacerbated by irresponsible government under the previous administration. I want to give you a moment, if you can, to elaborate on how these challenges have actually impacted your operations.
Yes. Thank you, Congressman. I want to first just acknowledge your prior comment, and that is that I do believe that the American farmer and what they've done productivity-wise is nothing short of awesome. And largely that's happened when government has stayed out of the way. So I completely appreciate your philosophy. As far as the question to direct impacts of inflation, our product is demonstrably more expensive today than it was 5 years ago. And as I alluded to previously, no one really has to buy a flower. And so when costs go up, and they have broadly gone up as a macro picture, we have no choice but to pass those costs on to the American consumer. And we want to see prices come down to put our product back inside the budget of the average shopper at stores across America. Thank you.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Carvajal, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the speakers that are here today. Ms. Brennan, as you know, I represent California's Central Coast, where agriculture is the #1 industry. Specialty crops account for a significant portion of agriculture grown in our state, which is the #1 agriculture state in the nation, as well as in my district, including Grimway Farms in Yokoyama. Growers require an adequate workforce in order to maintain crop production. Congress can ensure our growers have enough labor by advancing bills like the Farm Workforce Modernization Act, which I am a co-sponsor of. Currently, the Trump administration intensified deportation efforts have created significant uncertainty within California's agricultural labor force. Between March and August, the U.S. agriculture industry has lost an estimated 155,000 workers. Local stakeholders in my district have voiced their concerns over the impacts of these actions. Given the uncertainty of this immigration climate, what impacts have you seen on your farms, Ms. Brennan, and what steps do you think Congress should take to best address and support specialty crop growers and their workforce?
Congressman, I appreciate the question, and we also, as with Congressman Newhouse, appreciate being in your district as well. I think it goes without saying that that topic has obviously been top of mind for many of our industry. We have long advocated for and asked for a reliable legal workforce and the ability via your efforts with the Farm Workforce Modernization Act and have asked Congress to act in order to step up for our industry. I think I can speak for all of us to say it's not just our industry being affected by these issues, and yet we are, of course, at the forefront of where we feel it first. So I appreciate your leadership in that area. I would ask that you continue to lead. And as you can imagine, it's certainly a topic that is top of mind for all of us.
Thank you. Ms. Brennan, in your testimony, you mentioned the need for greater federal investment in research and development for agriculture technology. Can you expand on how the federal government can support research and increase innovation within the specialty crop sector and help producers like Grimway Farms?
Absolutely. I mentioned it earlier, but we are, specialty crops make up a third of crop receipts in the U.S., and yet we see such a small percentage of the R&D dollars. We believe as a coalition that strategic federal investment will lead to additional private sector investment as well, and we see that as a net positive for the industry.
Thank you. Continuing with you. You noted that unlike commodity crops, specialty crop growers currently lack access to affordable and effective crop insurance, yet are still subject to market price fluctuations and vulnerable to natural disasters. When considering updates to insurance policy, what options do you believe are the most needed to better help manage production risk and protect specialty crop businesses?
Congressman, I appreciate that. I would point to the Specialty Farm Bill Crop Alliance, that's a mouthful, recommendations that house a long laundry list of things we would appreciate. Obviously, a lot of our specialty crop growers are operating without a federally subsidized safety net, so anything to add to that program would be incredibly helpful. So we'll follow up with that full list as well for you if you'd like it.
Thank you. Ms. France, you mentioned that certain exemptions on the tariffs have saved your industry millions. However, there are other inputs still subject to tariffs that are currently impacting your business. Can you share what inputs are still impacted and how they are affecting your farms, as well as how those tariffs might be impacting other nurseries like those in my district?
Yes, Congressman, thank you for your questions. And thank you for highlighting the labor issue and for your leadership in that area. Certainly, your comments highlight the need for labor reform. To your question, I'll give you an example. A lot of nurseries across the country dig trees out of the ground and they wrap them in burlap to protect the root ball and keep them secure until they can get planted in the ground. Burlap comes from India off the jute tree. It's the only place you can buy burlap is off the jute tree, which doesn't grow in America. So there's an example of an item that must be sourced internationally that we would like to see exempt from tariffs. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, let me say my colleague, Ms. Pingree, mentioned therapeutic gardens during this pandemic. I tell you, having worked in the farms and the fields with my father, I did not do a therapeutic garden. I have a lot of PTSD from that work. But I think for those that were able to appreciate and do that, I think it's a great idea. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Crawford, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. I know this has already been brought up by several of the members already, and I kind of came late to the game, but I appreciate the topic. I'm not going to ask our witnesses to answer, but I do want to add my voice to the chorus of people raising the alarm about H2A. In the last Congress, and this you may have been made aware of this, but in the last Congress, we actually stood up under Chairman Thompson's direction and under his leadership. We stood up an ag labor working group, bipartisan group, and spent about a year or so meeting with various stakeholders across the country, representing a diverse mix of crops and production and all of that. And at the end of that effort, like I said, about a year-long effort, we came up with 21 recommendations to the committees of jurisdiction, 15 of which were unanimous in their adoption. All 21 recommendations were certainly bipartisan, but 15 were unanimous. And so this was definitely solid work done by the participants, the panel on the Ag Labor Working Group under this committee. The sad part about this is that the Ag Committee, where the bulk of the subject matter expertise resides, is a committee that has no jurisdiction. So we're relying on 5 other committees to essentially do the work to address the needs of the H-2A workforce. And the bigger problem here, as you know, the things that we can't control. For example, commodity markets. We can't necessarily control prices of commodities. We certainly can't control the weather. But things that we can control, and that is policy here in Washington and how that's having a negative impact on the workforce. And we can have a conversation about outsourcing our labor, which we've done, and which is a separate conversation of why we're so heavily reliant on an H-2A workforce. But the fact remains that we are, and as such, we don't need to further penalize our farmers when they're already farming below cost of production as it is. And so we're adding insult to injury by making it that much more difficult to manage the workforce that they rely on to get the job done. So I know this is impacting across the spectrum of ag production, whether you're a specialty crop producer, growing berries somewhere, or whether you're a large-scale row crop producer anywhere in the country. It could be livestock production, you name it, across the spectrum of ag production. This is a problem. So we definitely, we've gotten the support of the chairman and the ranking member on this issue. It's my hope that we'll make those referrals to the appropriate committees of jurisdiction, but recognizing, of course, that these recommendations didn't come in a vacuum. I mean, it was the result of a year-long effort dealing with producers of virtually every commodity, people who rely on a migrant workforce to be able to get the job done to feed and clothe America. So I appreciate you being here today, and I appreciate the members who spoke earlier raising this issue, and your answers to those questions will help inform this committee on the direction that we ought to go in terms of making recommendations to the committees. And one of the recommendations I would make, in addition to the 21 that we're making, is maybe the Ag Committee have more jurisdiction in that role. Because it's a difficult problem set, and without the appropriate subject matter expertise, it's that much more difficult to legislate the appropriate solutions. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll yield back.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Oregon, Ms. Salinas, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Chairman Thompson and Ranking Member Craig for holding this hearing today. I appreciate that both of you really follow through on your commitment to ensure this committee focuses on the importance of specialty crop industry to our entire agriculture community. And thank you to our witnesses for making the time today to be with us. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want to give one final opportunity as we start to close out this hearing on crop insurance. For Oregon, the nursery greenhouse industry represents the leading agricultural commodity, and Oregon's conifers, shade, Christmas, and flowering trees are #1 in U.S. sales. Unfortunately, I have consistently heard from our nurseries and other multi-crop producers that they simply can't find crop insurance that works for them. And for any witnesses who would like to jump in, again, just one final time, and Ms. Brennan and Mr. France, thank you for the testimony that you've already provided. But, why is it that crop insurance offerings, including whole farm revenue protection, fail to meet the needs of these diversified operations? And are there any additional suggestions you might make that we can alter to meet the needs of these producers?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I'll take a crack at it. The first one is to your specific question around the whole farm program. It again has a 50% threshold of loss. And for us small growers who have with diversified crops, that's just an unacceptable standard to be met. It's just, we'll be bankrupt before we'd hit that number. To try to address your specific question, there's a program right now at USDA called Controlled Environment, which I know is important to you. There's a lot of greenhouses in Oregon. The Controlled Environment is a program that addresses quarantine risk. When USDA or any government agency quarantines a crop in a greenhouse or any controlled environment nursery anywhere in America because of a quarantine that's outside the control of the grower, no risk or no fault of the grower, and the crop has to be destroyed, that grower is compensated for the crop. Our problem is that USDA doesn't order us to destroy our citrus, they just take away market access. And so to give you a metaphor, an example would be as if a potato grower in Idaho was told, you can keep selling your potatoes, but only in Idaho. And so it's not possible to move all your potatoes out inside the state of Idaho. And so there's an example where the program is well-intended, but we have yet to have a situation where USDA has ever in the country ordered a destruction order for citrus that have been quarantined inside of a controlled environment. So it needs help, and that's just a real specific example of how the controlled environment greenhouse program could be broadened to where a quarantine would be viewed more generally. If you lose market access, that's a triggering event to where the producer could be paid. Thank you.
Understandable, thank you. Ms. Brennan, did you want to add anything? And thank you for offering your 21 points. I'll take a look when you send them over. Would anybody else like to weigh in? All right, thank you. So this hearing serves as a reminder of the unique and varied needs of specialty crop producers. It's why it's so critical that this committee continues to increase investment and improve research programs specific to specialty crops, like the Specialty Crop Research Initiative. So Dr. Sagilli, thank you so much for being here. I'm honored to have Oregon State represented here again. What suggestions do you have, given you have so much experience with this grant process, to improve the SCRI grant, especially as we increase investment?
Thank you, Congressman Salinas. So I would say I'll have 5 things, but I'll go with the important ones here. So the timely release of proposals, request for proposals is really important, because as researchers, we are always busy with applying for different programs. And if we don't have any certainty in the RFPs, then probably we are not planning well. So you may not receive quality proposals. So that's an important thing. So I would expect a timely release of proposals from the SCRI program. The second one is adequate time between release of proposals and the submission as well. Because this year we have seen with some programs, there is only a month or maybe 2 months to apply. I'm not talking about SCRI, with other AFRI programs. So that is a limitation for us as well in applying and providing some good proposals. And the other one is, I would say, waive the matching requirements. There is one catch there for matching funds, and not all universities and all researchers are able to provide matching funds. I think we have been graciously waived for the last 5 years for matching, but I think that language still exists in the SCRI program. So I would say if we can look into that and see that is waived, that would be really beneficial for researchers that apply for these type of grants. And I would want to add one more thing into this is also seek constructive feedback. The program officers or managers, whatever we call them, they need to seek some good input from the reviewers as well, because sometimes the review process becomes more cumbersome if the applicant is not able to understand the process, how it has gone through. So we need some more constructive feedback from the reviewers as well.
So essentially technical assistance as you're going through the process itself?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. My time has expired. I yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. I now recognize the gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Miller, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Illinois is proud to be a national leader in specialty crops. We grow more pumpkins than any other state. 11,000 acres for jack-o'-lanterns, 15,000 acres for processing, and another 10,000 acres that grow a variety of a different pumpkin species. We produce 2/3 of America's horseradish, worth over $10 million a year, and we rank 3rd in popcorn production. Altogether, specialty crops in Illinois cover over 83,000 acres and generate nearly $500 million annually for our family farmers. But these farmers are being squeezed by skyrocketing input costs, labor shortages, pests and disease, and unfair foreign competition. Too often, Washington's policies ignore our specialty crop producers. Our farmers don't want handouts. They want Washington to get out of the way. They want a fair shake in the marketplace, and they want the tools to keep producing the safest, healthiest food in the world right here at home. As we start having more Farm Bill discussions, we must ensure it reflects America First agriculture, supporting our growers, strengthening our food security, and keeping our family farms in business for the next generation. So my first question is for Dr. Boring. The Specialty Crop Block Grant Program provides critical research and resources for farmers. How can we strengthen this program so Illinois growers have the tools that they need to succeed?
Appreciate that question. I would say a big step has already been taken. I've increased the funding capacity within the program. That certainly helps. I think those steps that have been implemented over time of increasing the program flexibility, of state determining priorities, that regional work that's often so fundamental for how universities put adequate resources at a problem. I think those have been reflective and are positive steps here that the industry's articulated here. I would say really that continued view of the relative importance of these is the cultural identity of places. Increased predictability around what that funding is going to look like into the future so that researchers, commodity organizations can build long-term strategic approaches about how we're developing solutions. It's the nimbleness of how we respond to these ongoing threats, but at the same time, the ability to invest at a comprehensive strategy on a multi-year basis of how we develop markets more broadly and address some of these broader concerns, I think is really critical and represents a new area of investment that the program could pursue.
Thank you. Ms. Brennan, labor shortages and rising costs are squeezing family farms. What improvements to crop insurance and support for mechanization would help U.S. producers compete fairly against cheap foreign labor?
Yeah, I think to your point about mechanization and automation, I think any additional federal strategic investments in those areas will help tremendously for the family farmer or for any farmer in specialty crops. So I would be supportive of that, and I can pass along additional feedback. But again, the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance priorities details that pretty specifically, and I think will act as a resource.
Thank you. And Mr. Franz, combining high input costs and foreign imports, it's been undercutting our growers. What changes to crop insurance would give American specialty crop producers a fair shot instead of pricing them out of the market?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for your question. First of all, as a person born on Halloween, I thank you for those pumpkins that your state is growing. To your question about automation, to my colleague, I would ask that you would work to get tariffs removed from automation machinery that comes in the nursery industry's case, often from Western Europe, nations like Holland. The Netherlands lead the world in nursery automation, and it would be extremely helpful to us as growers to have tariffs removed on specific pieces of machinery that cannot be sourced domestically. To your question, Congresswoman, on insurance, as I've stated previously, the specialty crop industry, especially nurseries where we have so much diversity on farm, crop diversity, it's very challenging for the programs to be effective. And so I would ask for an opportunity to brief you in more detail where we could explain what we think is a better path forward to make nurseries be more eligible for specialty crop insurance. Thank you.
Great. And we do want free and fair trade, which is the purpose of the tariffs. And we do want to, be producing our own equipment here. So thank you very much, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Now recognize Gentlelady from Maryland, Mrs. McLean Delaney, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. I think you're almost at the tail end, and I appreciate you pushing through. So I represent Maryland's 6th District, where specialty agriculture is both a key driver of our local economy and an essential part, really, of our farming cultural identity, from the Ag Reserve to the mountains of Western Maryland to our Chesapeake Bay. And our region has a diverse climate, which supports a wide range of crops, including my visits to Lewis Orchards, Butler Orchard, and Lingamore wine cellars. And this incredible richness and diversity really informs a lot of my questions. As we discuss the challenges and opportunities facing this sector, I look forward to hearing your insights. And I do have a few questions, but I do have to say I really appreciated your testimonies related to the need for a stable legal workforce, really focusing on increasing inflationary pressures, including tariffs on items that can't be procured here, like peat moss and burlap, which I didn't know about, and the dire need for affordable tailored crop insurance. And Mr. Franz, I'm an Idaho potato farmer's daughter, so I liked those comments. So my first is about risk mitigation. Mr. Franz, farming has always been risky, but with unpredictable weather, rising costs, and changing markets, it's getting even riskier. And the recent flooding in my district shows how hard natural disasters can hit farming and rural communities. And I often hear that our farmers, that the insurance really doesn't properly reflect the actual losses. For instance, in Western Maryland, a late frost can turn, fresh fruit into processing fruit overnight. You grow over 700 plant varieties, and with that kind of diversity, the reporting requirements on acreage and production and history, I think, could be overwhelming. Could you tell me a little about what changes would help with reporting requirements and insurance, which would make it more workable for farmers?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for your question. And I appreciate your interest in horticulture very much. We do have a tremendous number of crops, and it is a pretty intense place to be keeping track of everything. We have full-time people that all they do is drive the farm and update our inventory in order to ensure that we're able to meet the reporting requirements that we have in place to be compliant, and for our sales team to be able to know what plants look like at any given time. I also appreciate your comment about the urgent need for a legal workforce. If I think about what I hope everyone here remembers when we leave this hearing, it's the urgency around the need for a labor workforce solution.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Sugali, I've really been impressed by your research on honeybees and nutrition and pollination, really critical work for agriculture. Many of our bureaus and research institutes in Maryland have focused on a lot of that. We are proud to host USDA's Bee Research Lab at the Beltsville Agricultural Center, BARC, and which really has been a center of innovation for over a century. USDA's recent proposed plan of reorganization includes closing BARC, which is very sad to many of us within Maryland. And while I'm deeply grateful for Senator Rollins' focus on data and open communications and collaboration, I'm also very concerned about the long-term effects of USDA's research capacity and the loss of decades-long institutional expertise due to the relocations. I'd really value your thoughts on why continued investments in USDA research and institutions like BARC matters for the field, and if some of the others could comment as well.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So the Beltsville Bee Lab is really critical. It's a historical lab, and they have a lot of specimens as well from a long time. And I think it's a really critical that we keep those labs there because it's strategically located as well. It's not about whether it will serve in a different location, because they are strategically located to serve the Northeast as well as all the regions in the country.
Exactly.
So we have, I think I have signed a petition as well for that to request that the Beltsville lab should stay there, because all researchers across the nation that do honeybee research, they all appreciate how valuable this Beltsville lab is in the DC area. So
God
I
bless you for
appreciate
this.
your input on that as well.
Does anyone else have any comments on USDA and research and location?
Thank you for the question. I'll just reiterate or come in behind and say that the Beltsville Lab is the location where some of those trees are located that are very permanently rooted into the ground.
Yes, thank you. I'm running out of time and I yield back, but I will be submitting questions for the record. Thank you.
Thank the gentlelady. Now recognize the gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Weed, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you for being here today. You know, as eating healthier becomes an increasingly popular topic for the American people, I think this discussion today is especially pertinent. You know, I do believe that encouraging the American people to eat healthier is important for a strong nation and ultimately for our national security. It should go without saying, of course, that meeting the demand to do just that depends on having a specialty crop industry. Wisconsin is obviously known for its famous dairy products. However, the state is also a leader in a multitude of specialty crops. Door County, in my district, is globally renowned for its cherry industry. Additionally, many people do not know that Wisconsin produces 60% of the country's cranberry crop. Other specialty crops Wisconsin leads in are snap peas, ginseng, potatoes, carrots, and green peas. Additionally, Wisconsin ranks third in the country for the number of organic farms. I look forward to continuing the discussion here on how we can better support and enhance the specialty crop industry in the upcoming Farm Bill and have appreciated what we've learned thus far. So this question can go to any of you. As the national conversation, which again is a very, very good thing that people, the American people overwhelmingly are talking about eating healthy and being healthy and living a healthy lifestyle. Can we expect that specialty crop producers, as well as those who may want to begin to produce specialty crops, are we able to meet that demand with the current state of specialty crop programs?
Congressman, I'll just make a quick comment and pass it on to my colleagues, but I just want to say to you, thank you for your support of the Farm Bill. And I'm the farmer on the panel, so I don't have a lot of technical expertise, but I can tell you that American Hort, who I represent today, was supportive of the last version, and we just want to see something along the lines of what was passed last time, or what was proposed last year, moved forward. In other words, if I could be just so direct, we would be super happy to pass what's in front of you. Thank you.
Mr. Boring?
I would certainly say that the nation, and the upper Midwest in particular, has the capacity for the production to be meeting this challenge ahead of us, right, of how we're feeding ourselves in a more wholesome manner. I would say the way in which we go about that's very important as well, and running parallel to with the theme that food security is national security, of certainly putting in place the structures and the mechanisms and the policies to not only be eating healthier, but caring and investing in where we grow those sorts of products.
If you wouldn't mind, I would add this. Obviously, we take our job very seriously to bring fresh and healthy produce to tables across the world. But I would add that to the extent that Congress can reaffirm the USDA's authority to drive domestic consumption and promotion, we would appreciate that greatly, because I think there's certainly no shortage of a desire to grow more for folks, but that's certainly a need that I think USDA can fill.
Well, Mrs. Brennan, how do you specifically expect organic production to fit into this discussion?
I thought you'd never ask. Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate it. As you may be aware, organic sales, specifically in crops led by fruit and vegetables, accounts for about 58% of the organic market. We see that driving about $9 billion in sales, which is a huge economic driver. We've seen consumption go up and interest go up. So we do see it as something that can drive market advantages for us as growers, but also for anyone interested in getting organics as well. So exciting times ahead.
Well, can you elaborate on the growing importance, on
absolutely.
organic crops in our in our agriculture?
Yeah, I mean, overall, we're looking at that becoming the economic driver around pricing, availability. I don't know if you want me to touch on something specifically, but I mean, I'm happy to chat further outside of this, but something we're very proud of as a large organic grower.
Well, yeah, we'd definitely be open to that outside of this. So how should the upcoming Farm Bill better support and address this growing sector, in your
Absolutely. I
opinion?
believe we have at least one recommendation I referenced earlier, which is looking at the transparency with which NOSB is looking at policies every 5 years. Farm Bill can address some of that to bring stakeholders to the table, so that every 5 years when we're looking at the NOSB policies, they're allowing tech and the latest information to inform what that looks like going forward.
Great. Well, thank you for this great discussion, and as we all continue to make America healthy again, and it is very important. So appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Mannion, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the witnesses who are here today. Today's farm economy is flashing red due to too many variables that are creating a lack of predictability, increasing high input costs, volatile trade policy, uncertainty around immigration, and farm labor rules that are shifting week to week. So this administration's approach has created a lot of whiplash and not enough predictability. Shifting away from specialty crops, my heart goes out to all of you, but also to corn and soybean farmers across the country who have seen once reliable export and aid markets stall, leaving them with plentiful harvests, but too few customers because of the tariffs. I appreciate the comments from some of my colleagues today on both sides of the aisle as we had a discussion about automation and farm machinery that is not produced domestically, and my guess would be that there is very little expectation, realistic expectation, that farm machinery and automation would quickly be made domestically, and therefore our farmers need help now. Congress shall have the power to collect taxes, duties, imposts, excises, to pay debts, and provide for the common defense and the general welfare. I am a team player. My team is the House of Representatives. Trade policy is our job. But just yesterday, in the Rules Committee, a rule was passed to prevent privileged floor motions related to tariffs from hitting the floor. So we have ceded our power. Why? Why have we done that? It's an easy thing that we can fix. All we have to do is our jobs. In Central New York, the pain of the multitude of variables are showing up in our specialty crops. New York is the #2 apple producing state with roughly 30.5 million bushels projected this season. Our grapes and wine support thousands of jobs from the Finger Lakes to the Mohawk Valley, on farms and in packing houses, tasting rooms, and small businesses throughout our communities. When trade relationships are fickle and labor rules change week to week, we are not serving our farmers well. We need to fix that. We need to fix it together, and we can fix it because it's our job to fix it. In the midst of these challenges, it's important to highlight what is working. Through the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program and Specialty Crop Research Initiative, New York universities and growers are leveraging federal support to deliver practical solutions like tackling spotted lanternfly and fire blight and helping producers access new markets. Recent increases for these programs were the right call. Now USDA must keep those funding opportunities predictable and on time so growers can plan ahead. The bottom line is that New York farmers need open markets, a committed and legal labor force, and science-driven resources that keep their farms resilient. And I am ready to work with all of my colleagues to deliver solutions to keep our ag economy strong. As a former biology and chemistry teacher, Dr. Segeli, I'm going to ask you a question. In your expert opinion, using the research that is available, in my conversations with local farmers, neonicotinoid seed coating is an essential tool that they need to be able to assure their crop yields. In your opinion, is there a significant negative impact on the honeybee population as a result of the use of neonicotinoids?
Thank you, Congressman. So there's been a lot of research in the last 15 years on neonicotinoids, and what we have seen is it's still mixed results we are seeing, or conclusions. So there is no conclusive evidence at this point that just the neonics are causing it, but I think they are contributing to some degree to the decline in bee populations. But I don't think they are the primary cause for the declines at this point of time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I apologize, I was distracted, but for a good reason, with a baby. Now, recognize the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Bresnahan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the ranking member for holding this hearing. As you know well, Mr. Chairman, specialty crops are one of the cornerstones of Pennsylvania's agriculture economy, especially in northeastern Pennsylvania, where over 2/3 of the crops grown in my district are specialty crops. Because of their complexities and unique challenges, I know the specialty crop industry often gets overlooked, even though these are products that Americans see most when they walk into the grocery store or farmer's market. Reminding Americans about exactly who and where their food comes from has been the emphasis of my work in this committee. Just last month, I had the chance to visit and tour Brace's Orchard right in my backyard in Dallas, Pennsylvania. This 9th generation orchard is the staple of the Back Mountain community. The Brace family grows everything from apples to peaches to fresh flowers and shared how they were able to provide 55,000 pounds of fresh fruit to local food banks for distribution. These types of stories are exactly why I introduced my bill, the Local Farmers Feeding Our Communities Act, which will help boost the purchasing of locally grown food by farmers and growers like the Braces and ensure it's distributed to those in need inside of their communities. My first question is for Dr. Boring. First off, thank you to the NASDA for your support on the Local Farmers Feeding Our Communities Act, and excited to work together to get that across the finish line. But I also wanted to ask you to expand on the Michigan Farm to Family program you mentioned in your testimony and shine some light on any lessons that Congress could take away from this program.
Well, really, I appreciate the question on that. I would say that the continued investment in these kinds of areas seen as just more broadly advancing the public good here, the long-term best interests of communities, creating meaningful ways for farms to diversify and have additional profitability is really essential here. It speaks to the continued investment in areas that we need to be building the connective tissue around agri-food systems, right? Of making sure that we've got capacity from institutions to have staffing capacity, funding capacity, to be valuing local production, but also making sure that we're making investments in distribution, transportation, aggregation, so that we've got pathways for small and diversified farms to be able to access markets for the betterment of local economies.
Well, thank you for that. I also noticed that most of the specialty crop farms in my district are family or operated, small or mid-sized, or run by beginning farmers, and in many cases, all three. I'd welcome any feedback from the witnesses to answer this, but I'm curious about what unique challenges these types of farmers face and how this committee and Congress can best support them and help set them up for long-term success. I'll continue with you, Dr. Boring.
Well, I would say the recognition of building resiliency and diversity into our systems is for our long-term best interest here, right? Making sure that we've got the capacity there for farms of all kinds to access markets. And again, it's distribution, it's transportation, it's aggregation, about bringing sufficient quantities of produce together so that we can access into markets. But the recognition of the fact that it's going to take farms of all kinds, sometimes with unique challenges of each individual type of operation, so that we've got ultimately resilient systems here for the betterment of our ag economy.
I appreciate that. Mr. France, how about you?
My comment is, thank you, Congressman, for the question. I appreciate your passion for this. In specialty crops, we do highlight our size, and often we overemphasize how small we are and how insignificant any one given sector or crop is. But I would highlight that the sum of the parts is we're pretty mighty. Just the horticultural sector alone, we contribute $348 billion to the economy across the country. And that's an outdated survey from Texas A&M. So collectively, us specialty crop growers have a substantial contribution to the economy. Thank you.
Any other witnesses? No, thanks. Okay. Doctor?
Yeah, I can just say something about so as I think Dr. Boring mentioned, so there is unique challenges with, we grow more than 300 different specialty crops here in the United States, and each of one comes with a different, like for blueberries, for example, like for harvesting, we're looking for some technology where we can have mechanized harvesting, and it's not that easy because they are very soft and you have to be very careful how you harvest. So coming back to your question, I think because of this uniqueness, probably we need more funding to support these kind of specialty crop industries, not just with SCRI, which I am representing today, but for other things with crop insurance and other things that my colleagues have spoken here.
I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Costa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee here. I think it's appropriate that we take this time, and I want to thank the panel to discuss the challenges of specialty crops in America, and not only to the witnesses, but the two that are from California. Obviously, I have some familiarity with your efforts, a third-generation farmer myself, and having represented 9 out of the 10 counties in the Valley over the years in Sacramento and now in Washington. We're very proud in California of our specialty crops, although when I go to the grocery store as a person who likes to cook and so forth, I never see any signs directing you to the specialty crop section of the grocery store. Clearly, food is a national security, and the crops that we're talking about that today are essential to a healthy diet and nutrition daily. And food is a national security issue. We don't treat it that way often. In California, the farmers, ranchers, dairymen, and women produce half the nation's fruits, nuts, and vegetables, 20% of the dairy production. The list goes on and on. Last year, it was $61 billion at the farm gate. 44% of our agriculture is exported. And I want to center a little bit on research and the issue of tariffs because I think they're critical. Right now, this issue of mass deportation, which has brought fear in the agricultural labor market that I've not seen in my entire life. 70% of our workforce, unfortunately, is undocumented, and it's a problem. But tariffs create uncertainty, and they're attacks on not only American consumers, but also American producers, agricultural producers as well as manufacturers. The impact of trade, let's start there. And I want to find out from Ms. Brennan and Mr. France the uncertainty that's been created over the last 6 to 8 months on these tariff wars. What does that do to your ability to market as Grimway Farms does so successfully, Ms. Brennan? And I'm glad you talked about the organic production.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your question and thank you for your leadership in the Valley. I will just say personally, I've appreciated for your time in Congress very much and your representation of our industry. I would say that, we haven't seen necessarily a direct impact for us. However, the uncertainty is absolutely something that the industry and specialty crop industry speaks of quite often. I think to the extent that Congress can step in to ensure that we have market access domestically and internationally to compete globally is incredibly important and will continue to be important.
Because you're price takers and not price
Correct,
makers.
sir.
And so the world markets for all of the different commodities that you grow, and the same with you, Mr. France, is depending upon what the world market is. Mr. France, you want to comment?
Yes, Congressman. Good to see you, a fellow Central Valley resident. Thank you for your support over the years for our various issues, especially around
Mr.
trade.
Gray wanted to be here. He's under the weather, but he said to give you his regards.
Thank you, thank you. I'll just highlight that our industry largely is not much of an exporter, but we are absolutely very discretionary. People buy our products on impulse, and if they're feeling uncertain, they're less inclined to buy discretionary items like flowers.
Let me move over to the issue of research and development because there's been a lot of cuts that took place with DOGE originally, resulting in over 1,600 employees being reduced in the USDA alone. I'm a big believer in public-private partnerships. In the University of California, ag research facilities throughout the state, both at the Kearney Ag Station and the Parlor Station, provides a lot of innovation in terms of plant development and the plant sciences issue. Have you found that to be an impact, Mr. France? Are you concerned about that public-private partnership, the muscle that's really developed as a result of all that research that takes place?
Congressman, thank you for the question. I don't have expertise in that area.
Dr. Segali?
Yeah, Congressman. Yeah, we do have some concerns because we do, as universities, work with USDA as partners. And sometimes there have been long-term relationships we have developed for doing research with USDA partners. And if we lose workforce at the USDA, probably that's going to impact in a big way what we have been doing for the last 20, 30 years.
And obviously that research has led to so many innovations in ag sciences that we appreciate today. And there's obviously a lot more to be learned and gained, I think, with artificial intelligence and other developments in the whole issue of agriculture, would you say?
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that.
Ms. Brennan, your Grimway Farms is obviously a leading developer of ag products. Do you have any partnerships that you would like to talk about?
I don't today, sir, but I certainly am happy to talk to you at another time.
Okay. My time has expired. Thank you, the chairman, and we'll continue this effort and move along. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman, and now I recognize also the gentleman from California, Mr. LaMalfa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having this important committee on our specialty crops. I wanted to ask Ms. Brennan there at Grimway. Well, first of all, where do you get the seeds for those little carrots? I'm trying to figure, I can't find those.
Very special place.
Huh?
Very special place.
Very special
I'm sure
place.
we can get you some special
Okay,
carrot
all
seeds.
right, all right, because all I get is a big old long one, so, all right, thank you. That's not the real question. So I wanted to cover with you a little bit, it's a bit of a, it's a big deal. The H-2A, we've had a skyrocketing in the number of positions that were requested and certified in just the last 20 years or so. And this isn't necessarily in our committee's jurisdiction, but would you talk to us a moment about how important it is that we reform H-2A and get the labor we need here, and just how difficult it is right now, or how do you see it? What do you see as the future of the whole industry if it continues to be this difficult?
Yeah, I think, sir, we've talked a little bit earlier on about the need for reform at H-2A. I think we've all said something akin to that. I think I'm happy to supply with some recommendations from IFPA, who have been very vocal with the administration and Congress on the need to reform that program. I think at a minimum, Congress, regardless of which program we're talking about, needs to step up and step in to look at bipartisan reform, because something's got to give, frankly.
We took a couple good swings at it around here before.
Yes, you did. We appreciate it very much.
We can get that momentum once again. Mr. France, again, both two fellow farming operations, California. I grow a little bit of rice up north of both of you, and indeed, California has its challenges. But on issues, Mr. France, on crop insurance, it's something we've fought really hard to improve and have more strong in the last two farm bills here, especially. As a specialty crop grower, tell me what do you see as it for a diversified farm and a specialty crop? How well the insurance policies, the availability, et cetera, is working for you with, you know, in your line, as well as we know there's a lot of tree nut crops, vineyards, things like that all have to try and deal with this. Tell me a little bit about how this works out for you, or do they even pencil out?
Yes. Congressman LaMalfa, good to see you. Good to see another Californian. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your support for our industry over the years. As I previously shared in my testimony, the specialty crop growers like myself, who have a large diversity of crops on farm at any given time, find that the current insurance programs are just not workable. The threshold to trigger a payable event are essentially unattainable. And so we would love to work with you. We've mentioned the Specialty Crop Alliance, American Hort. We have recommendations to bring to the table, and we'd hope you'd consider moving them forward. Thank you. Okay.
Do you see the work so far in the Farm Bill as a step in the direction towards that, or does it still need improvement?
I believe it still needs improvement, but we certainly see the Farm Bill as a step in the right direction, and we hope it gets passed.
Yeah, certainly, okay. And for anybody on the panel that cares to, you know, I mean, disasters just seem like they're ineligible in this country, so it's not whiff, it's not win, it's going to be win, right? Either on price or certainly on what nature does. So, so how much can any individual farmer endure? Are you going to be even close to being made whole? I think we know the answer to that. It's just a matter of can you scrape by? But the feedback I'm getting is that especially crop folks especially are getting the leftovers. They're on the bottom of the pot year after year in these issues. And again, federal government can't do everything for everybody. That's a reality as well. But would you on this panel give me a perspective of how disaster funding rollouts have actually worked out in the areas of specialty crops, and also offer maybe can Congress and the USDA take notes to make future processes work a little bit better for not just the Title I's at the top, for specialty crop as well. And I give you 30 seconds to do it. But
Yeah, I mean, I would just speak directly to our recommendations, which include the establishment of industry-led advisory committee at RMA. Additionally, greater flexibility, in the development of the policies around specialty crops in that area, and then enhanced data collection for specialty crops. But then I would also turn to the real need for Congress to remove or clarify that all revenue insurance policies should be agnostic to what causes the loss. Those are some very specific items.
okay, thank you. Anybody else? A few seconds.
I was just going to thank you for your highlighting of change of weather. Certainly in California, we see more heat, we see more cold, we see more dry, we see more rain. And so certainly climate variability is real as it pertains to crop insurance.
Okay, thank you. That underlines why we need to have more water storage to catch the water before it runs away instead of being snow sitting up there on the mountain all year. So let's build some dams. And I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you much.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Davis, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and to the ranking member, to our witnesses who are here today. North Carolina's 1st District is well known for different row crops grown in the district. There are many that may not know, but we tend to rank #1 with sweet potato production, and I'm really proud of that. In addition, the district produces countless berries, vegetables, cultivated trees. With this increased production level comes the need for a stable and affordable agricultural workforce. So I would like to focus my attention and question briefly on the H-2A program for any of the witnesses. What specific challenges, especially related to costs and harvesting, do specialty crop producers face compared to those when using the H-2A program?
Congressman, thank you for your question. I personally am not an H-2A user, but a large number of nurseries, especially on the East Coast, South, and Northeast are, and it is an indispensable program for them. Their consistent voice is the high cost of the program, the difficulty in the challenging neighborhood environment to navigate to get employees on your farm. They would ask that there be a single electronic application process to be able to streamline getting people onto farm. And the last one is just the variability of cost, even inside the same contract year. So it's very challenging to budget if you end up paying different wages halfway through your contract than what you thought you were signing up for. So again, it's indispensable. We don't want to see it go away, but it could absolutely, as you've heard us previously testify, could use some help. Thank you.
Thank you for that. As I said earlier, sweet potatoes are huge for us in North Carolina. North Carolina farmers produce over 60% of the total U.S. market. In 2024, these exports totaled over 129 million. So access to foreign markets is a top priority for NC1 sweet potato farmers. Mrs. Brennan, given your role as the chair of the International Fresh Produce Association's Public Policy Committee, can you speak on the challenges that specialty crop producers and consumers have faced this year with so much trade uncertainty?
Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate the question. I think our members see a lot of benefit in programs like market access and technical assistant task for specialty crops. I think they see that as critical in opening new foreign markets. I think I would also add that there's a real need, and we've referenced it earlier in the hearing, for some trade enforcement to protect the growers here and resources to ensure that they can compete fairly in the global market.
Well, thank you so much for that as well. The Minor Crop Pest Management Program, or the R4 program, has been essential for specialty crop growers in their fight against different pests. The program allows the crop protection industry to provide safety, effective, and economical crop production products for growers of specialty crops. For all of the witnesses, anyone who'd like to weigh in here, what specific ways has the R4 program benefited the specialty crop industry?
Congressman, thank you for the question. IR4 is especially important for the nursery industry because many of our crops are so small that our pesticide or fungicide needs, the quantity of usage is so small that private chemical companies don't wish to invest in pursuing that particular market. So we can use the federal funds to help leverage research in continuing to develop additional crop protection tools that are vital for our crops. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would add just one additional thing. I think there's a very direct ask from the industry that Congress would provide no less than $25 million annually to that program to ensure, and more, we will take more, believe me, to ensure that we have the crop protection tools necessary.
Okay. Well, let me say, Mr. Chair, to the ranking member, thank you so much for this panel today, and to all of our witnesses, thank you for being with us today. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Dela Cruz, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much to all of our witnesses for being here. And thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, for holding this very important meeting. My name is Congresswoman Monica Dela Cruz, and I have the honor of representing Deep South Texas, including the McAllen, Edinburgh area, which we are known for our citrus and for our specialty crops. So this was very important that not only that I attend, but that we hear from those specialists in the area and what we can do better. In my district, my constituents, my farmers and ranchers have complained about two things. One being the 1944 Water Treaty and how the Mexican government has failed to abide by the treaty, thus not giving our farmers and ranchers the water that we have desperately needed. This is not a new problem. It's been a problem for over 80 years. And sadly, previous to me becoming the Congresswoman for South Texas, there was nothing done about it. And even more sad because of the lack of effort that was done by the former congressman in this area. Sadly, we lost the only existing sugar mill in Texas. And what a devastation for our economy, for the loss of jobs, and those farmers and ranchers who just worked years doing something that they loved. Thankfully, earlier this year, under a Trump presidency, we were able to do two things. The first is hold the Mexican government accountable and force them to give us the water that they owe us. And the second is to give them the economic relief so that they could keep their farms and keep farming, because we were very, very close to losing our citrus industry. So I'm very glad that I was able to work with the chairman here for Ag Committee, as well as Secretary Rollins and Secretary Rubio, and of course the White House having their support. But the fight is not over. And in fact, when I've been listening here in this hearing, I'm hearing things that I've heard over and over again. Number one, from the H2A working group that the chairman put together. And actually, Congressman Gabe Vasquez mentioned it. And it was simple process and simple changes that we could make to the H2A program that would make significant difference. That's why I proudly introduced something called the Bracero Program 2.0 Act, because it has common sense, and I see Michael writing it down. Thank you. That's the Bracero Program 2.0. A lot of people know this. Bracero program was in the 1960s. It was widely successful, and what it did was it helped our farmers bring over the labor that they needed to help them farm. This is hard work, and we want to make sure that we have a process in place to get the labor market that we need. And what this will do is ultimately drive down prices and also save farms, because right now they're having such a hard time finding labor. So what does the Bracero program do? This legislation will streamline the application process, which I heard earlier just a second ago. Someone was saying we need to streamline the process so that there are not so many applications to do, but we have one process. We also expand the H2A access to greenhouses, and what we've heard over and over today, make a fair wage calculation. The current AWAR calculation is complex, and what we want to do is we want to make it a regional calculation, which we heard over and over again over these last several hours. Allow for a 12-month contract instead of a 10-month contract, have regional labor permitting, and single petition for staggering needs, and then of course streamline recruiting. Does that sound like something that would help our ag community? Is that a yes? Is anybody a no? Go ahead, Michael.
Congresswoman, thank you for your comments. I just want to start by saying that some of my best friends in life would only are citizens and present in my world because of the Bracero program. So I'm very familiar with it and very supportive. As far as your bill, I haven't seen it, but I know the association I'm representing today look forward to reading it and getting involved. So thank you for what you're doing.
Well, I'll leave you with this. We have over 20 organizations and associations, everybody from the Texas Farm Bureau to the Watermelon Association, the Pecan Association, that is backing this important act. So I ask my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to look for this piece of legislation and get on it so that we can help our farmers and ranchers today. Thank you. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Connecticut, Mrs. Hayes.
Thank you, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today and for your testimony. Specialty crops account for a large portion of the farm economy in Connecticut. According to the 2022 Census of Agriculture, over $362 million of farm sales in Connecticut came from nursery, greenhouse, floriculture, and sod growers. You probably guessed I'm from Connecticut. I'm sorry, I should have said that. An additional $89 million in sales comes from farms producing vegetables, fruits, or nuts. Unfortunately, the number of farms has declined in recent years, with the total farmland area in Connecticut declining by about 2,000 acres between 2022 and 2024. This reflects a nationwide trend. A combination of high land prices and limited safety net options makes it extremely difficult for Connecticut farmers to recover from a poor harvest or an economic downturn. I reintroduced the Save Our Small Farms Act, legislation that would help farmers with limited access to crop insurance receive more accurate payouts from the non-insured disaster assistance program, while creating an on-ramp to a whole farm recovery protection program, which can better serve small, diversified operations like the ones I represent in my home state of Connecticut. Mr. Franz, your testimony mentioned the need for crop insurance reforms, and your materials included a recommendation that the whole farm revenue protection program be updated. Can you talk a little bit about why traditional crop insurance offerings are insufficient for the horticulture industry and the types of growers that I just described?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I appreciate the question. The whole farm program requires at a minimum 50% loss before a payout can occur. And so for us nursery folks across the country who have a broad diversity of crops on our farm at any given time, it's essentially impossible to have half of them die because of any one given event. Anything can happen, but for example, where I'm from in California, frost, a freezing kill is our biggest single risk. Well, at any given time, at least half of the plants we grow they don't freeze. They're for cold markets. And so even if we had a killing frost that took out 1/3 of our citrus production, it still wouldn't be a payable event. So that's our concern around the whole farm program.
Thank you. That's a great example, because I know we encourage these small farmers to diversify so that they're not in these situations, but by doing that, they are basically pricing themselves out of these programs. And the cost of insurance is only one barrier that producers face when trying to gain coverage. In parts of the country, like New England, there's no viable insurance policies for farmers to purchase land in the first place. The agents have no incentive to create new products. For those who cannot access insurance, USDA offers limited resources. Producers face delays and burdensome paperwork for payments that do not cover the value of their assets, while extreme weather, which threatens their livelihood, is becoming more frequent. Mr. Brennan, in your testimony, you said USDA must be empowered to develop a better safety net for specialty crop growers. Can you tell us what Congress can do to create practical and competitive insurance offerings in places like New England and similar regions? I'm sorry, Mrs.
That's okay. You can call me whatever you'd
I'm
like.
no,
It's
no,
okay. Thank you for the question. I appreciate the sentiment in your comments. I think the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance has a pretty hefty list of recommendations that includes a number of items. One thing that comes to mind, and just to sort of riff off of what Mr. Franz said, is that there's a real call to create a advisory committee at RMA that would inform what that crop insurance could look like from the perspective of a producer and a specialty crop grower. So bringing that voice to the table, I think, would go a great deal of a way to where we need to be tomorrow.
Thank you. On this committee, I really try to amplify the voices of small farmers because the only way our ag ecosystem works is if everybody feels represented and included. And while much of the work that we do really is to the benefit of large farmers and people who are single industry producers, there are lots of other farmers who, either by design or default, end up not being able to access these programs. And we really have an opportunity on this committee, based on the testimony of people like you, to really think about the nuances that our farmers face and our ag producers face, and make sure that we are doing the most good across the entire industry. And with that, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The chairwoman now recognizes herself for 5 minutes. I'd like to thank our witnesses for appearing before us today. And as a Floridian and the lone Floridian on this committee, I am particularly excited about this topic. Obviously, home to over 300 specialty crops, Florida is a leader in this space, and so it's an honor to not only serve on this committee, but to be the voice on behalf of the thousands of producers that call the Sunshine State home. The latest census of agriculture proves the robust nature of Florida's specialty crop industry. In 2022, the state sold over $1.4 billion with a B dollars of fruits, tree nuts, and berries, $3.4 billion in nursery, greenhouse, floriculture, and sod, and over $1.9 billion in vegetables, melons, potatoes, and sweet potatoes. These specialty crops represent more than half of the total value in agriculture sold this year. Now, I know it is not the purview or jurisdiction of this committee, but I would be remiss if I did not mention the importance of labor in today's hearing, as we all know that specialty crops require a tremendous amount of labor. And as I speak to our producers around the state and quite frankly around the country, we all recognize that there is a dire need for reliable and affordable labor. But we have a challenge in this country. I'm hopeful that one day we can have a conversation about the need for reforms and the specialty crop research also that is so dire for this industry. I'm hopeful that we can have a different conversation about keeping the industry resilient and well-funded. So I'm going to begin with you, Mr. France. You had mentioned, talking to my colleague from California, that the Farm Bill was in a step in the right direction. Now, as you know, Florida's nursery and ornamental industry is one of the largest in the United States, yet it faces hurricane risk, pest threats, and supply chain disruptions. Specifically, what improvements could be made to crop insurance and disaster relief programs to better serve our nursery and specialty crop producers? And I know that we know the shortcomings broadly, but if you could speak to specific fixes that Congress could undertake, that would be appreciated.
Congresswoman, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to answer your question because you said hurricanes, slightly different. You have a booming citrus industry in Florida. You're the most important, one of the most important industries you have in your state. There is a particular request I have of this committee.
I'm all ears.
And that is that there are challenges in the citrus protocol, the citrus regulations that deal with what to do with breaches. We grow our citrus inside USDA certified houses that exclude pests in order to prevent your citrus orchards from being the continued spread of HLB. When hurricanes come, or even small breaches, but certainly hurricanes are a significant factor and a big one, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for the nursery growers in your state to get recertified. And in some cases, the lack of recertification is more impactful to their business than the hurricane itself. And so it would be enormously helpful if we could see some sort of help getting an update to a decade-old regulation that is still waiting for improvements from industry to make the breach protocol be more effective on our nurseries and farms.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to echo, I mean, the citrus industry, as we know, you can't really talk about Florida without talking about citrus. And I am fearful that with every grove that goes under and another housing development replaces it, that just breaks my heart. That could be the final crop. So that is something very, very tangible that I believe we can undertake, and I will follow up with you to see if we can get that addressed immediately.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. Boring, based on your experience, can you share the uncertainty around the Farm Bill reauthorization, specifically how that impacts investment decisions and planning for the following season?
Certainly, I think you really touch on that as one of the more significant barriers that growers I know in Michigan and across the country continue to experience is the uncertainty. There's certainly ramifications around trade of what that looks like moving forward. But the standing up some of these more significant, more comprehensive risk management strategies. I'll additionally highlight some of the concerns and the pressures of uncertainty on permanent crops, of how growers need to forecast far into the future of what return on investment is going to be. So oftentimes when we're establishing asparagus, apples, cherries, there's a delayed payoff there before those crops become fruit-bearing, that we can start gathering investments. So growers in those industries in particular are really plagued by the uncertainty that's currently out there, with some of the uncertainties certainly around Farm Bill, about how we make long-term bets on the futures of these industries when there's so much hanging out there that we're just not sure about at this time.
No, thank you. I agree wholeheartedly. The uncertainty is absolutely something that has plagued the industry, and we need to do a better job here in Congress in delivering. So my time has expired. At this time, I wish to recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Tandahar.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you, Ranking Member, for organizing this hearing, and certainly welcome to all of our esteemed panelists here. Particularly, I want to welcome Dr. Tim Boring, a fellow Michigander. Good to see you, sir, here. My name is Shri Thanidar. I proudly represent Michigan's 13th Congressional District, including the great city of Detroit. And, I want to particularly talk about Detroit, and I understand, Dr. Boring, as you said, Michigan is, a leading specialty crop state with over 300 different crops. I want to focus a little bit on Detroit, which is a big part of my district. 35% at or below poverty level. During COVID, our city indiscriminately suffered lack of nutritional products is a huge issue. Now with the SNAP cuts, that's just going to go into a huge disadvantage. Many food deserts in my district, in Romulus and parts of Detroit. And I've firsthand seen constituents, the only access to food is gas stations. With lack of public transportation, there is no other place they could go receive food. We do have a lot of blight and a lot of empty spaces. I see homes, and then I see another block empty. What can we do to encourage urban farming? I know there are some good efforts in Detroit, but not enough. Not enough to provide the good nutrition my constituents need and deserve. And with the lack of SNAP funding, this is going to be a critical issue. How can the Farm Bill that's coming up, how can that make a difference for urban farming? How can we get good, nutritious food in the hands of people?
Well, I'll say that Detroit's really been a pioneer in the urban ag effort across the country. And I'll commend the city for making investments of standing up off sustainability and funding positions within city government that recognize the importance of urban agriculture. Visiting so many of the farms in the Detroit area, it's really struck me of the power of food as culture, as social connectiveness, of economic opportunities in places that don't often have enough of those. So one of the big emphases is our department of how we've sought to increase economic opportunity and the livability of places. Certainly, I think it's an important pathway in rural America that's got a number of challenges. But the same kind of power of those programs to urban areas as well, to increase livability of places, to increase economic opportunities, to build social culture, to invest in a meaningful way into the future of communities. And a lot of that's food, right? So it's really struck me as the power of this kind of work to transcend geographies and particular demographic areas. The recognition of agriculture as a way that moves all of us ahead, I think, is really critical at how we frame these issues and approach the work.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to particularly honor our former U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow and her great work in the agriculture area. I want to go back to the climate vulnerabilities, and anyone on the panel. How can the Farm Bill help mitigate some of the climate vulnerabilities for small farmers?
I'll talk very briefly the pieces of how we potentially link conservation programs with risk mitigation and the recognition of investments in the soil capacity to weather drought, to weather too much rain. Those have demonstrable benefits of how we build in resiliency. And it becomes hard sometimes of how we bring together siloed programs in different areas. But I think there is a lot of power there about how we more effectively use taxpayer dollars to achieve goals on multiple different fronts.
Thank you, Dr. Boring, and my time is up, so I yield back, Chair Boone.
I thank the gentleman, and before we adjourn today, I invite the ranking member to share any closing comments that she might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I so appreciate the opportunity to listen and to learn from our witnesses here today. It's no surprise that America's specialty crops are valued at over $115 billion annually, and that our fruits, vegetables, tree nuts, spices, and decorative plants are enjoyed worldwide. We have heard from a wide range of stakeholders that interact with the Farm Bill's specialty crop programs and have shed light on these programs' successes and opportunities for improvement. As we wrap up this examination of the state of the specialty crop industry, it's clear that folks across this industry face unique challenges that make it even more difficult to navigate farm uncertainty, labor shortages, disaster recovery, and the ever-changing tariffs. I would like to thank our witnesses again for their time and expertise here today, and I remain committed to continuing this conversation and working on tailored and permanent legislative solutions to make sure that the specialty crop industry is adequately supported by the Congress. Thank you again, and I yield back.
I thank the ranking member. I also want to lend my thank you to our witnesses for bringing your expertise to the table here and helping us shape future policy that we will see here. Thank you to the staff, all the staff that worked so hard to make sure that this we were prepared for, and quite frankly, were able to conduct this, without a glitch. It was much appreciated. While the specific number of specialty crops grown in the United States is not fixed due to ongoing innovation and variety, the total number of varieties grown is somewhere well over 1,000 in our country. H.R. 1 not only recognized the importance of specialty crops, but delivered significant support for specialty crops. Whole farm revenue coverage is increased to 90% to expand access for specialty crops. The AGI limitation waiver, if a producer's income has 75% or more income from the farming or ranching, will allow them to take advantage of programs like NAP and TAP, which will create more data for RMA to create more insurance policies for specialty crops. The doubling of market access program and the foreign market development program. $95 million a year increase to specialty crop research initiative, $15 million increase in specialty crop block grant program, $15 million increase in plant, pest, and disease management and disaster prevention program. And I will say these were things that are now law as of July 4th of 2025 when we included Farm Bill 1.0. in the HR 1. But these are all initiatives that we really developed in a bipartisan way under the Farm Food and National Security Act of 2024. And we did that working with you all. You all have been at the table, you know, whether it's been here in Washington or, quite frankly, those Farm Bill listening sessions in about, I don't know where we are, 42 different states, 1 territory. You all have been at the table and helped us to shape what we're able to achieve using the vehicle that was presented to us, which was the Budget Reconciliation Act. But there are more that remains to be done. That was very clear from your presentations, your written testimony, your oral testimony, and the interactions with all the members here in the committee. We need workforce certainty. Without it, we have food insecurity, which leads to national insecurity. We need new trade wins that benefit specialty crops. We need the opening of the humanitarian aid pipeline that includes specialty crops, so that it's another market for us as we serve people in other countries that are living in conditions of famine and starvation. We need fixes to other things that, as we go forward, we know that we need to do with Farm Bill 2.0, fixes to the research programs, carve-outs for mechanization and automation. We need to improve specialty crop block grants to enhance producer collaboration with states. Reauthorize the market access programs for specialty crops with further improvement to crop insurance. My prediction is, till we're done with adding what we've accomplished with Farm Bill 1.0, with what we know and we need to do in 2.0, and your testimony has been very instructive of what we need to do, we will have probably the strongest and the best Farm Bill for specialty crops that we've ever seen. And so thank you for being at the table to help to shape that. So under the rules of the committee, the record of today's hearing will remain open for 10 calendar days to receive additional material and supplementary written responses from the witnesses to any question posed by a member. This hearing of the Committee on Agriculture is adjourned.